Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening, everybody. We are kicking off a brand new week of Spaced Out Radio, talking super soldiers, talking secret space program, UFOs, aliens. Olav Phillips is our guest tonight, and we are glad to have Olaf back here. As well, Dirty Filth is here for another great night of cartoonage. Let us say hello to all of you, if you don't mind. We got... and be in the gold medal position. Race Fan with the silver. Chris 716 in the bronze medal position tonight. Hi, Laura Lobbs and Brown Dwarf. Roy Boy and Dog in Australia. Good morning, Commonwealth Andrew. Les Paul Holland in Australia. Jenny, how are you? Zed Hutt, Guy Calgary, and of course, our good friend _ Maddie, who looks like Dave Grohl. And Raymond L., how are you? Good to see you. And let's see. Sweet Donna Spencer. Just another guy named Harry is here. Just another guy named Harry will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Lee the Bee and Zoria, how are you? Hi, Skip to my Lou. And Gensfeld, Crystal J, Millennium, my man. Derek Galloway, how's it going? Richard Elmore and Dutch UFO, good to see you both. Mama Susan, Jessica, Danny Staten is here. Danny Staten will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Gizmo, Mama Susan, Doubleday, Kathleen Hughes, nice to see you all. And there's Christine Lynn and Sibylla Irwin. Hi, Nick Adkins. Thomas Rock, good to have you both here. Dark Protocol, Alien Critter, what's happening, guys? Nice to see you. Corey, what's happening, man? And we are caught up already? Wow, that was quick. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell, as we are here 7 days a week. I wish that flashing would stop. It's driving me freaking nuts. Absolutely nuts. You know, and it's not happening in the studio. It's just happening in the camera area. I don't get it. Hi, lovely Kira. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Mr. B's Truth Seeker, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else is joining us here? I think we're caught up. He's caught up. And let's see here. We've got about a minute here. We're going to get that radio side going here momentarily. And if you haven't recently, do a little bit of shopping at spacedoutradio.com. We got really cool swag. Very cool swag. And like I said, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and have some fun with us. Yeah. Just have some fun with us. That's what we like to do. Have fun. Yeah. Paramarv. Chinchillin, welcome to SOR's chat. Penman. Nikki, what's happening? Peppa H, good to see you. Beelzebrad, has a devil put aside for me? For me? For me? You like how I mixed that one in, right? Ozzy, oi oi to you, my friend. And who else do we have here? Phil Minervino, good to see you. Bobo, what's happening, man? All right, Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hi, Eddie Petch. And, of course, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. Whatever you feel after the show, leave us a message. Helps with the algorithms. Robert Lamoth, good to see you. Desert Rat, thanks for coming on in. The lovely and talented Amber Dawn Glover, give yourself a bow if you don't mind. We'd appreciate it. I'll bow back. There you go. 10 seconds. I'm ready to kick this week off. How about you? Horns up. Let's do this thing. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show of serious woo tonight. Olav Phillips talks secret soldiers, super soldiers, secret space program, UFOs, aliens. He's got it all. Yeah, and a fantastic beard as well that goes along with that. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton has a great story for us on From Among the Missing. Then, after that, the UFO report. Little Timmy Cedor is going to join us for the latest in UFO news. All right, let's get right to it. My good friend, Olav Phillips, is a founder of the Anomalies Network, the largest UFO and paranormal information source on the internet. Over 24 years experience. He's probably around 30 now. His beard, probably about 35. Excuse me. Where did that come from? Anyways, Olav's self-proclaimed passion is serving as an archivist for the UFO community. He's an author. He's a researcher. He's somebody who continues to push the information limit. And we love him for it because when there's something strange going on, Olav Phillips is the man to bring it forward. Olav Phillips, it's good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. We'll get you to unmute your microphone. Thank you so much. How you been, my man?
Greetings and salutations, Dave. I've been good. I moved.
Yeah.
I decided
I know you moved, huh?
Yes, I decided to go to the mountains and to live amongst the arrows.
So let me ask you. You know, I mean, you're a man who wears a lot of plaid. Okay.
Yes.
You wear
it's summer, I'm in light plaid, but yes, I'm in plaid still.
Okay, you're a man who wears a lot of plaid. You know, does it finally feel good to wear that plaid in the forest?
Yes. Yeah, you know, I woke up the other night in the middle of the night and I walked to the window and, you know, I mean, I had to live in a city because, you know, that's where the jobs are. But I walked to the window and there was a buck walking through my backyard and it stopped in front of my window and we stared at each other for a while. It was pretty cool. Luckily, he didn't. He didn't eat my rhubarb, but yeah, no, it was good. I
They
love it
don't
up
eat
there.
rhubarb. They don't
They
eat
don't eat
rhubarb.
rhubarb? Oh,
Your
good.
rhubarb is safe. Your
Oh, good.
rhubarb is safe. I know that from personal experience. And weird that you say that. I actually, before the show tonight, had a buck walking through my backyard.
It's majestic.
It is.
It is.
They still have the velvet on the
Yeah.
antlers that are growing,
Yeah.
which is really nice to see,
Yeah.
so I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah. And, I got a gold mine,
I don't have one of those.
Yeah,
I
I
don't have
got
one of
somewhere. I don't know where it is. Apparently, it's there somewhere.
Hey, why not?
Why not?
Why you are a man who is somebody who's always been tied to the darker side of I don't want to say conspiracy because I think the word conspiracy gets thrown around way too frequently and has been uglied
It's
by a number of other
yeah.
subjects.
Yeah, I
Okay,
would
but
agree. I would agree with that.
I would say the dark world
Yeah.
of UFOs, of
Mhm.
government agencies, of everything like that. Olaf, how did you get involved with all of this black ops type of information?
It's hard to explain. I think first of all, I need to say that everything that I figure out and that I know and that I learn comes from books. It comes from things that are publicly available. Right? I'm not breaking into anything. I'm not on the dark web, anything like that. But I think it's because ultimately everything that you look into when it comes to this stuff, even the 14 stuff in general, I think ultimately it goes there because I've read Adamski and who was tied to some very interesting people on the darker side. But I never really subscribed to the Space Brothers thing. And even if they were our Space Brothers, I think the people that keep the secrets, the way they keep the secrets, it tends to go down a dark path. Because that there are secrets that should be kept, right, for national security, and for safety, and we don't want everybody running a nuclear reactor in their backyard, right? So, knowing how to build one, that should be secret, right? I don't have a problem with that. I never have. I respect that. But some of these things that happen in this world, there's a body count. There's a body count associated with it. And I think I can't remember the guy's name offhand, but it's in the book, but there was a guy, the book I wrote a long time ago, there was a guy, and he was at I think a MUFON convention, and he was doing some kind of presentation, and you can watch the video. It's on YouTube, and he does the presentation. He goes, "Excuse me, I have to take a break for a second," and he takes this Diet Coke and he drinks this Diet Coke, and then he has a cardiac arrest and dies, like right there in the middle of the presentation. And common belief is the guy was poisoned. I mean, there when you get into this stuff, there some of it at least there's definitely a body count. So I think that's why I think all roads lead down when it comes to this stuff eventually.
The dark side of the projects that are out there, they are so mysterious that I mean, people will be ruined if they give up their NDAs, even
Oh yeah.
mentioning what they had for breakfast at, say, places like Area 51 or Dugway or Dulce, or Wright
Well,
Patterson Air Force Base.
yeah, but I mean, an oath of secrecy is something you take very seriously. I mean, not with certain people, obviously, who shall remain nameless, obviously don't seem to care about it. But the vast majority of people that have clearances, that work on things that require clearances, they no matter what country you're in NATO or in the US, Canada, right? They take that stuff very seriously, and there are lengthy prison sentences if you divulge classified material. That's why, this guy that's come out now, the whistleblower, he had to go through the inspector general and qualify as a whistleblower before he could start talking, because there are procedures and protocols. And even the stuff that he's exposing, you notice there's no detail, but when he goes before the Armed Services Committee or the Intelligence Committee of the Congress, he's telling them more because they're cleared to hear it. So yeah, I mean, but there are things that seem to be darker than others. I mean, the secret squirrel world it's very weird, and it has very interesting twists and turns. But yeah, it's a strange place.
Well, let's start to dig into some of this because, you are a believer in the secret space program. You are a
Oh yeah.
believer in super soldiers and
Mhm.
and the high strangeness that goes along with this. Let's start off with the secret space program. And I know certain areas you personally have to be careful because of
Right.
previous NDAs that you have signed.
Right.
Okay, but why do you believe that there is an active space force, so to speak, with their own craft and their own way of doing things?
Well, my personal opinion, there are a lot of ways to approach that question, but I mean, I've seen the aircraft. Though they're very high, and I think they're orbital. And it's like just the other day, I was up on top of this place called Bald Mountain. I was at a Cal Fire Helitack base, and they were having a skywatch. And anybody in California, anybody in the western states, including Canada, you guys know who Cal Fire is. We send our bombers everywhere, our fire bombers. But I was on a Helitack base. Basically, it's a firefighting base with helicopters. We call it Helitack. And I was up there doing a sky watch, and they had the big telescope out, and they're looking at Venus and Saturn and whatever. I've got my night vision goggles out, and I'm looking straight up, right? And I'm watching, quote unquote, satellites doing zigzags, and satellites don't do zigzags. Satellites go in straight lines, right? And so, I went to one of the guys who was running it, and I was trying to be nice, and I said, hey, you know, you want to look through the goggles, because looking at the sky through goggles is way different than with the naked eye. It's a completely different experience. And I said, and I made a comment. I said, watch out for the satellites that do zigzags. And he goes, oh, I don't know. I've seen them. I'm like, yeah, normal satellites don't do zigzags. I mean, literally like a zigzag. But I've seen the planes, or whatever they're up there. I think there's also a lot of evidence, when you look at somebody like Gary McKinnon. I mean, here, this guy, he's on the spectrum. He's trying to find UFO information, hacks into some NASA site or DoD or something. And what he comes out with, it's the detritus of of a program, that it's like, we need 16 red staplers over here. We need, 4 tons of ice cream sandwiches over here. It's not, well, we have 16 space battleships, and it's not like that. But what it is it's the paraphernalia of a bureaucratic system. And we all live in bureaucratic systems, whether we're in Canada with your big Canadian flag, of course, or we're in the United States or any aligned country, not aligned country. So there's paperwork. If you buy some pencils and you put them on a ship, you have to sign a form, right? And so that's what he found. And so what was the response to this poor kid? They want to send him to Guantanamo. They want to send him to Guantanamo for what? They're going to put him in there with some hardened terrorists that really do kill, like, a lot of people, and want death to everybody who doesn't believe what they believe. And then there's Gary McKinnon, you know, evening hacker extraordinaire. Let's put him in Guantanamo and waterboard him. I mean, it's just a complete overreaction. That's why the English wouldn't extradite him. So, I mean, I think it's things like that. I think it's also, I had an epiphany one day, and I had watched years, decades ago, a show called Alternative 3, and it dawned on me one day that it's real. And I thought, well, if I really believe it's real, then these things that are in the movie the TV show, whatever. I should be able to find them. And lo and behold, I looked for each one, and lo and behold, I found them. I found the meeting of the American Chemical Society in 1950, 57 or 58, where they talked about phytoplankton, and the fact that they can't scrub as much carbon dioxide as we thought they could. The high altitude nuclear detonations, the bunkers and all the other stuff. I found all that. I mean, I even took photos of Mars that came from NASA, and I found really bizarre structures. I mean, not stuff like, I love Hoagland, but we're not talking about the face on Mars and the DNM pyramid, and all that stuff where it's open to interpretation, right? This stuff is very clear. There's one photo in particular I put in the book that I show it to people, and I'm like, "Where do you think that is?" And like, "Oh, that looks like a beach house in Malibu." I'm like, "No, that's on a big, canyon, one of the larger canyons on Mars." And they don't believe me, so I give them the file, and it's just like, I don't know, 1 gig file from NASA that has the entire strip of the canyon. There's this little dot, you blow it up, and it looks like a house. It has a round, perfectly round sphere on it, whatever. So, if I go down that path, if alternative three is real, then that necessitates a secret space program of some kind. And then, you hear things and you see things. I mean, it all adds up eventually. But I do believe in the secret space program from the point of view of alternative three. I don't think, and then there's STS-48, STS-72, where you're watching these high velocity objects being fired in orbit, and you're watching things move around. And, I think it's just a lot of little pieces equal a big puzzle.
Okay, where would they hide this stuff? That's the big thing for me. Where do they hide things? Where do they make things go away and and
Define
make
go away.
things well like disappear? Okay, like are they parking them on the moon? Are there secret bases around the world that nobody knows that they
Yeah.
are a part of? What's happening with that?
So I have a spot I like to go in the Eastern Sierras and the Southeastern Sierras, and it's above a little tiny town that basically has like two buildings. And it's this little spot, and if I look off, I'm between me and Area 51. There's a big mountain range ridge. I'm in the mountain range, so there's a big ridge. But if I look that way, I can see things climbing out of Area 51. Now I don't know what it is. I could make a guess, but you watch things and they climb out of there near vertical. It's kind of a hockey stick, your favorite sport. It's kind of a hockey stick looking thing. Kind of comes out and then it curves up and then it goes straight up. And you wonder, okay, well, where's that going? Right? What's that doing? And there for years and years, John Lear actually did a presentation on it probably 20 years ago. And it was like an analysis of tracked vehicles on the moon. And he had all these photos that are very clearly, they're tire tracks. They're parallel, you know, tire tracks that run all over the moon. And then there's a thing called transient light phenomenon that occurs on the moon. It's occurred for a very long time. And, it's random lights that move across the surface of the moon. It's like, okay, well, what is that light? There's no oxygen there, so it's not a fire or a plasma or whatever. But what is that? Well, you could argue it's probably a vehicle of some kind, right? So I think what you have is I think there are things out at the Lagrange points, um, including the Dark Knight satellite. But I think you've got what you've got is stuff out at the Lagrange points, and I think you've got stuff on the far side of the moon because we don't see it, right? We never see the dark side. So on the dark side of the moon, I suspect there's stuff. I don't. If you're familiar with John Lear, I like John Lear. He was a good guy. I talked to him a few times, but I don't agree that there's a soul collector for the gray aliens on the dark side of the moon. But what I do think is I think there's a base over there. I think there's definitely stuff on Mars. And who knows? I mean, I think there's probably stuff scattered all over the solar system. Do we have the capability to go to light speed, so to speak, and go out to Alpha Centauri and Barnard Star? I don't know. But I know that we're definitely moving stuff around and doing stuff inside the solar system. My belief, at least.
Are we preparing that space program, or this secret space program? Is that for control of space? Is it for potential aliens to know that we can play in the space field too? Is it for earthly combat? What's it for? Do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a multi-purpose thing. I mean, if you know anything about doing things that are military in nature, most devices have multiple roles. They're multifunction. So I think it's probably multifunction. I don't, you know, I have a absolutely crazy, insane idea about part of it, and I think there's some evidence for it, but I can't really prove it to you very well. It's conjecture, but I think that it's definitely. I don't think that it's so much control of outer space, so to speak. I think they already did that by mere virtue of the fact that they're there. I don't think there's a lot of competition. But yeah, sure, I think that's an element of it. I think that there's an element of them guarding us, or at least the perception that they're guarding us. Um, I think it's also a disaster scenario. I think that's where you come in with the alternative three thing, right? Because
Right.
the end result of alternative three was to go to Mars to at least Noah's Ark some level of humanity out there. And considering that we've had the last 3 or 4 days, we've had the hottest 3 or 4 days in recorded history. I think tells us that we're not going anywhere good. And I do believe in a chemtrail strategy. I don't believe there's a chemtrail fleet, but going back to the 50s, there's evidence that they were looking at some kind of a chemtrail kind of solution because the earth is heating up. We can't deny it. It is happening. You can argue that it's not because over here it got cold, and frankly, so far this summer it's been relatively cold, with a couple of really super hot days, but um the way that climate change works is that it doesn't work the same everywhere because weather patterns are chaotic. So you know in general it's heating up and it's undeniable. There's also there's ancillary evidence that there's some kind of thing taking place, because in the days, I always like to point this out, in the days after 9/11, they grounded everything in North America. In fact, our Canadian brothers and sisters to the north were very kind, and there was a little tiny airport out there, I think in Nova Scotia or
In
Newfoundland.
Gander. Yeah,
Yeah,
in Gander.
yeah, and they landed so many planes that they ran out of space. And
55.
yeah, and for not a very big airport, and Canadian airports in general, they allowed just mountains of commercial aircraft to land because we were like, if you cross a plane into our airspace, we're going to blow you out of the sky. And they were very, very serious about it. I mean, we had fighter planes patrolling the skies above our cities, you know. But when that happened, one of the side effects of it is that when that happened, a bunch of climate scientists and a bunch of atmospheric scientists said, "Oh my God, this is the first time in modern history when there is nothing in the air. Nothing. There are no planes." I mean, sure, there are F-16s and F-18s and F-15s and E-3s and E-5s and KC-10s and KC, whatever, military stuff. But it's pitiful compared to how many commercial airliners there are, right?
Olaf, I'm
Yeah,
going to get you to hold on right there because we do
sure.
have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Olav Phillips. We're getting into all the secret stuff tonight. Secret space, secret sauce of McDonald's, secret spices from KFC, super soldiers, aliens, and many, many more on Spaced Out Radio. We're in for a good time tonight with Olav Phillips. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Did Samantha Mowat, a lady named Samantha Mowat, reach out to you, Olaf?
Not yet.
Okay, she's looking for a publisher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you want her.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, tell her to email me.
Mm-hmm. And what
I
color
gotta get.
plaid do you have on tonight?
It's actually white with gray and red uh, checkerboard.
Very
It's
nice.
summertime. I had to switch to my summer Carhartt.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I think at some point I need to go call up Carhartt and say, you know what, you need to sponsor me as a weirdo.
Yeah.
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 Well, I plan, over the next couple of years to make some incursions into the Southern Sierras to go Bigfoot hunting. They're having a Bigfoot Fest on my birthday on the 26th of August, the
Very
27th.
nice.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to Bigfoot Fest. It's up in a place called Twainhart. That's above where I live. Very excited. And it's funny, I heard a
Mm,
story from one of the guys at the radio station where I do the show. He was telling
yeah.
me that last year they brought out this map and they said, okay, they announced in the PA system, okay, anybody who's had a Bigfoot sighting or heard them or had any kind of interaction with Bigfoot, come line up and put a pin where it happened, right? And he said
Mm-hmm.
that the line was like all the way through. It was like so long. It was like pretty much everybody there lined up to put in a pin.
Oh,
And
wow.
we had a Bigfoot sighting just like 4 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. This guy apparently he wasn't much of a believer, and he was doing a home inspection for somebody, and he was looking over the kitchen, and he looked out the kitchen window. And he said that Bigfoot was walking through their like yard, and stopped and was like staring at him through the light or through the window.
Yeah. I have a case like that up here about an hour and a half south of me.
Yeah.
Um, here's a cool thing up in our Sasquatch area on the weekend. We went up there and I was sitting on the tailgate of my buddy Mike's truck, and he quietly says to me, and he points to my left. He goes, "I get the feeling there's one in there." He goes, "They're here. There's one over there."
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, cool!" Like in the trees.
Sure.
And not 3 seconds later, my son, who is about 25 feet from us,
Uh-huh.
he's playing in the dirt. He
Okay.
sits up and he points in the exact same direction as Mike and says, "They're here."
There you go.
And I was like, "Who's here?" He goes, "The Sasquatch who we're looking for. They're here." And he gets up and he starts walking towards where Mike and I were. And I'm like, "How big are they?" And he goes, "There's only one there." And he goes, at first he said 10 to 15 meters, but then he changed to 10 to 15 feet. He thought it was more closer to 15 feet. And
Okay.
dude, it was one of the creepy, awesome things that I've ever heard my son say or do.
Yeah.
And he was just, he was like, dude, he was like bang on, just
Yeah.
like bang on with everything that was going
Well,
on. Yeah, it was cool.
I heard a hell of a story that I did not know that the the Miwok who are the First Nations people of that area. They're huge believers, and I mean it's just completely ingrained into their society. And it's Bigfoot's not necessarily running in with Bigfoot's not necessarily a good thing. The Paiute on the other side, on the far side of the range, in Bishop and around Mono Lake and all the way up to Pyramid Lake, they call him the Bone Crusher. That's the
Mhm.
translation of what they call it is Bone Crusher. Well, I heard a story that they call it the Yaya Lee, and I heard a story that about a really nasty Yaya Lee that was harassing this group near what today is called the Chicken Ranch. It's a
Mhm.
casino, and they were they lived in that area, and he was harassing them and ended up killing a child.
Oh
And
wow.
when, yeah, basically threw it into a bunch of rocks because the little kid, baby or little kid, was crying and too loud. So he picked it up and tossed it into a rock.
We got like 10 seconds, dude. We got 10
they
seconds.
they killed it. They buried it, and I know where it is.
Oh God. Hold on. We got Deb, Phil, W. Decker, Twig, Kira, and Dog for the super chats. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go with our good friend Olav Phillips. We're getting deep into the super soldiers and secret space program tonight. Olav is a podcaster, radio host. He is a researcher, writer, book author. What else you want to be, Olav? What else is on your resume?
I'm a lord of Sealand. I have a
And a
lordship
Duke of
of
Earl.
Sealand.
And
Yeah.
a Duke of Earl.
I'm a laird.
We love it when you are here, my friend. And you
I have
are
the
the consummate wearer of plaid.
Yes. Oh, I have
Yeah.
20 ordinations.
There you go.
I'm ordained in the Church of IKEA,
There you go.
Church of Volcanism. Church of
Oh,
Cthulhu.
we could go on forever. We were talking right before the break about, well, what kind of craft are there? What kind of craft are they hiding on
Well,
us?
okay. Yeah, so to finish what I was saying about the chemtrail thing, because that's important, right? Why are they doing this? So they all ran outside and said, "Well, let's take a look." So they sent up balloons and other stuff, and what they realized is the Earth became brighter. That when all the aircraft weren't flying around, the Earth became brighter. Not only did it become brighter, it actually became warmer. It went up by like a half a degree or a third of a degree, which, considering the amount of time had passed, is insane. And then the plane started flying and the Earth got darker. It's called global dimming. You can look it up. It's real. If you ever thought that the Earth is darker than when you were a kid, that's because it is. And there's a whole bunch of other ancillary things like uh oh, what's that, the thing, people lose their memories, you know what I'm talking about, right? When they
Yeah.
get old. Yeah. So
Alzheimer's,
Alzheimer's.
dementia.
So that, yeah, dementia. So they think dementia is caused by aluminum in your brain. And so, a lot of people are, oh, when back in the 50s, 60s, even up into the 80s, we were eating Hungry Man dinners. Everybody did, right? Stouffer's. And they came in aluminum trays, and we use aluminum for everything. And you use aluminum foil and whatever, make hats and, cover your food. And well, the aluminum leached into the food, and they think, and it caused Alzheimer's. But actually, if you look at it, the rate of Alzheimer's starts climbing in the 50s, and it really hits a high point, now. But you can see that the temperature of the Earth rising, the ambient temperature, actually follows the rate of Alzheimer's increase, because the theory, and it was popularized by what's his name, Teller, Dr. Edward Teller. He wrote an article called "Sunscreen for the Planet Earth," and the idea was to dump aluminum and metallic particulate up in the upper atmosphere that would change the reflectivity of the Earth, making it darker, and would reflect the solar radiation back into space and the light. back into space and cool the Earth. So, there's some evidence that they're doing this kind of stuff. So that plays into alternative three, which is we went to the moon and Mars. We went to Mars by way of the moon to save ourselves. And that would necessitate a pretty decent kind of space operation. I don't know that I call it Space Force. That's something different. But there's some kind and so you could argue at that point that it's some kind of breakaway civilization. And then there are other stories about Tesla cities in the Andes, and that they perfected anti-gravity engines and were able to go into space, and they're a breakaway civilization. Walter Bosley has done some very interesting stuff around breakaway civilizations as well. But
Hmm.
that's really the genesis of why. As far as what, who knows? I mean, we see a lot of triangles, right? A lot of people, especially with night vision goggles, if you go out back, you can see stuff flying through the air that is triangular. I've seen them myself out at Trout Lake at East around Mount Adams. I mean, I've seen them here, you know, but that's what that stuff is beyond me. I mean, I can only give you conjecture based on photographs that I've seen of aircraft.
Do you believe all of the black triangles are ours?
No, I don't. But I think most of them are. But there was a series of black triangles that flew around in Europe back in the 90s, and their behavior was not something that I would ascribe to a human. I I don't think any human would do it. What they were doing is they would fly along highways, and that makes sense even as a human, because it's a great way to go from city to city. You find yourself a big highway. Here we have like I-5. It goes from like the top of California to the bottom. It's like you follow I-5, you're going to go past San Francisco, San Jose, and Los Angeles. The three most populated cities in the state. And you're going to go by Sacramento even. So it makes sense. But they did some other weird stuff, like they'd hover around graveyards and shine spotlights into graveyards, and they do circles around nuclear reactors and missile fields and nuclear ammo dumps and other things that I don't know that a human would do. The graveyard thing has always kind of bothered me, but I think those are probably something else. But I think a lot of them are human.
Do you think then that they have to land? I talked to one person about this, and he kind of threw a hypothetical at me, uh, being in the know. He
Uh,
said, "What if?" He goes, "I'll give you this. What if?" He goes, "What if they don't have to land? That way, there is no base."
well, why would they have to land? I think that's an excellent question. If they are what I suspect they are, which is extraplanetary capable, they go cruise around, and when they're done, they go back up and do something in orbit. They refuel or whatever they're going to do. But I mean, the one I saw, um, yeah, it was huge. I don't know where it would land. So I would assume it went back up into space and docked at a space station or went to a base somewhere in space. That would be my assumption.
What is your thoughts then about NASA trying to play the "oh wow" card when it comes to UFOs and getting
Well, I
into
think
the
it's
UFO?
true. I think it's true. I
Really?
don't think, yeah, I don't think NASA knows anything about it. No, I don't think NASA knows anything about it. I think probably 99% of the Air Force doesn't know any. I think probably 99% of the DoD doesn't know about it. I mean, if I think it's run by a few people, and I think they think that by hiding it, they're protecting us, and maybe they are. I don't know, but the way that you hide this kind of stuff is that if you have a program that's part of the government, right? There's accountability. There's oversight, whether it's the Congress or the DoD or your own chain of command. if you're doing something, there's a paper trail, and there's compliance requirements, and people have to know about it. And, you have to have a secrecy set up, and you have to have a chain of custody of the information. And, you have to talk about it in secret places that are hardened. And, there's paperwork. So the way you hide things like this, and this is what I think that the government has done with some of these programs, is that you hire an outside agency to handle it, right? And then that it becomes a special access program. And the special access program is run by Lockheed. And so and like a Lockheed or a Boeing or a Northrop Grumman or most defense contractors, they have their own secrecy levels within their company, right? So you have this idea in the government where you have top secret or top TS poly, TS crypto, secret, classified, whatever, top secret. Well, they have the same kind of thing in the skunk works. And so I think they send this stuff through DARPA into these defense contractors. And once it's a special access program, they're not beholden to anyone. They do what they're going to do as long as they fulfill the deliverable requirements set out by the program. Like on this day you have to supply this kind of documentation, or on this day you have to do this thing. As long as they do that, they meet their objective and the money flows. So I think a lot of this stuff is actually no longer held by the DoD or the US government. I think it's in the vaults of defense contractors we probably never even heard of, right?
Do you think then that there is some sort of Pandora's box that is sitting somewhere in the Pentagon deep with all the secrets, whether it's aliens, whether it's secret space program, whether Eisenhower traded humans for technology, whatever the rumor may be?
I don't think there's a box that has all that. I think it's scattered around. Because if you have a box, that means that somebody can get to it. If somebody can get to it, they will. So I don't think there's a secret padlocked, fireproof box in the middle of the Pentagon, 20 feet under the Pentagon, under the little park in the center. I don't think that exists. That's not how this works. I think there. So once upon a time, I heard a wonderful story, and it was about this guy who's a machinist, and this guy worked for a small machine shop, and they made nuts. That's it. They just made nuts, but they were very special nuts because they had to be threaded a certain way. They had to be made out of a certain kind of material. The threading had to be within a certain insane tolerance, and it had to withstand heat and all this crazy stuff. And what he did all day is he worked on the machines, and they made nuts, millions of nuts. And he was always like, "What am I doing?" Well, the pay's good, and we all like each other. It's a happy place. So he just worked there his whole life, and he made nuts. And he never knew what they were for because they didn't know. They were contracted by some other defense contractor. They were subcontracting out to make these things, and he never knew. And then one day, years after he retired, I forget if he was watching a documentary or he went to a museum or something, and they had one of the very old nuclear reactors that they used on submarines. And he's looking at the reactor, and he goes, "Oh my God, that's the nut I made." And it turns out that this little company, all they did was make the nuts that they used to tighten the bolts on these nuclear reactor containment vessels. And he never knew what it was for until he watched this documentary years after he retired. It was like, okay, well, we made the nuts that went on those reactors. That's the way this works. It's like, I'm going to give you a little piece of metal. I want you to test it and figure out what it is. I'm not going to tell you where it came from. I'm not going to tell you what it does. I'm just going to give you a piece of metal and I want you to try to melt it. That's your job. And so they break everything up into little pieces so that nobody knows what anybody's doing. Somebody somewhere knows the big picture, but even then they only know the big picture of one part of it. So you spread it out. Somebody somewhere knows the map of everything, but I don't think it's a box that's sitting in an archive.
But isn't that how the military industrial complex keeps its control? is because, say, those little submarine nuts are made in, let's say, Nebraska, but the
Right.
propellers are made in Pennsylvania, and
Right.
the the periscope is made in Hawaii or wherever it may be. I
Right.
mean, isn't that kind of how it works?
Yeah, and they're all assembled and tested at Mare Island and put together. That's literally how it worked. Yeah.
So if that's how it works, I mean, that's how it's pretty easy for the military industrial complex to keep going when they've spread things so thin in
Sure,
each and every
and it
state.
keeps, but more importantly, it keeps the secrecy of what it's actually for. You know, you may build an inertial guidance system, but you don't know what it goes into. It turns out it goes into a nuclear missile. You know, you don't know ever what it's for. You know, you don't ask questions. You build what you're told to build to spec. And that's, yeah, I mean, that's how they control the flow of information. But somebody somewhere knows everything, but I don't think, I think there's a group of people that have the map, but I don't think the map is in a box in an archive. That's not how secrecy works. Because as we become very aware in very recent history, when you have classified material, sometimes and classed material, sometimes whether you're an airman in the Air National Guard or you're somebody else, you know, that information gets out. And so to prevent the leakage, it's the map is very strictly controlled. So it may not actually exist on a piece of paper, or it may not exist in a computer, and it may only exist on a piece of paper, right? But that piece of paper is cut into 8 pieces and stored in 8 different places. And 8 different groups have to come together to put the piece of paper together. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right. Right. And the
The stuff
purpose?
to keep it secret. The stuff is stored. If what the whistleblower is saying is true, this stuff is stored somewhere. It exists, but the number of people that know where it is and what it is really limited. It's really, 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 really limited
How many
because
people do you
it's
think would be in the know then?
about the big picture.
Yeah.
Only a handful. You know, I asked a very knowledgeable person once. I said, "How many people can you have in a functional conspiracy?" And he said, "Is that a joke?" And I said, "No, I'm really asking, how many people can you have in a functional conspiracy?" And he says, "One." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "You don't want anybody else to know, or you'll get found out." Okay. And so, what do you do with the other guy? He's like, "You take him out to the desert." And you go from 2 to 1 because, you know, so the number of people, I would say it's only a handful. If it was a dozen, I would be surprised.
Hmm.
Even what this guy is saying, he only knows one part of it.
Outside of the black triangles then that could be flying around, what do you think, what other toys do you think we have that are up there?
Well, you know, if you ask anybody who works in DARPA, right? How far ahead is DARPA from us in the civilian world? They'll tell you somewhere between 100 and 150 years in the future. So
Right.
I think they have electric gravitics, you know, anti-gravity. I think they have, you know, functional rail guns. I think they have lasers. I think they have fairly very sophisticated communications equipment. You know, I think they have all kinds of stuff. I don't know about teleportation or things like that, but you know, I did read a story once. It was interesting. There was a story released. It was a press release, and it was released, and it was from a from a government lab, and it was a researcher who is a real researcher in cryptography, and she claimed that using a quantum computer, she hacked a 4,000 was a 4,096 bit encryption key in under, I think it was under 10 seconds. Now, a 4,096 bit encryption key, it should take you like 3 million years to crack it. She did it in 10 seconds.
Oh,
And
wow.
and that was very quickly removed and sanitized. And when it came back out, it had nothing to do with what it originally said. But there are screenshots of it on the website, and whatever, and everything in it seemed legit. And maybe it was a joke, or I don't know, but you know that I think they have very, very sophisticated quantum computers. I think they have fairly sophisticated AI systems. I mean, if you look at what an AI, even Chat GPT can do, I think they're way beyond that. So I think they're very far ahead of us. But I don't think they have transporters, or I don't think this is Star Trek. Not quite yet.
No, not quite yet. But
No, it's coming though.
do you think though that we have taken leaps forward in time travel?
No, no. I think time travel is too dangerous. I think it's far, far too dangerous for any kind of a sustained project to try to actually do it because of the butterfly effect, right?
Explain that for people who may not know.
Sure. So I get a time machine. I go back 1,000 years, and I'm being very careful to not change anything, but I kill a butterfly accidentally. And the fact that I killed that butterfly leads to a chain of events that ultimately 500 years or 1,000 years later leads to a nuclear holocaust, because you don't know what effect downstream the unexpected death of that butterfly causes. Now, I do think that they screw around with stuff that does affect things, because you take the Mandela effect, right? Many, many, many people have written about the Mandela effect. In fact, I remember the Bernstein Bears. I remember a lot of these things that, as a child of the '80s, I remember a lot of these things that apparently never happened. And when I talk to my other Generation X brethren, they all remember it too. So it's some kind of mass, it would have to be some kind of mass hallucination when all my friends who are my age range remember the Bernstein Bears, and you can go down the list, right? Shazam and all that other stuff, and Mandela dying in prison, and you we all remember the same thing. Well, about the time that people started reporting that effect, the I think it was Fermi Lab in like Chicago, they were screwing around with some advanced, exotic particles. And my belief is that during one of those experiments, they forked time, and we're basically shifted all of us into a different, at that point, shifted us all into a different line, like timeline, where these things were different. But those of us who are old enough to remember before, we remember it differently, because to us that was real. But to the people who are younger than us, they look back and it had already changed by the time they were aware or conscious of it. But there was a set of experiments. I think it was a Fermi Lab around the time that the Mandela effect started to be talked about. There were experiments being done there in exotic particles. So I think they did something accidentally.
Very interesting.
It's
Very
dangerous.
interesting. I can see that.
Well, I
Totally
mean,
see that.
ask yourself a question. What if I get a what if I get a time machine and I go back, 5 generations, and I say, well, you know what? Your great 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 grandparents, I don't think there's a love connection there. Well, the end result is there's no Dave, there's no SOR, there's no Dave's kids. I mean, you could change things. The one that everybody always hypothesizes, what if somebody had gone back and killed Hitler? What
Right.
would happen? Right, what would happen to the world? And there's an argument that time heals itself, that maybe it wasn't Hitler. Maybe somebody else would have risen up and taken the form of Hitler, but that's all conjecture. The reality is that if you kill that butterfly, it could lead to a thermonuclear war 1,000 years later.
Olav Phillips is our guest tonight. When we return, what is a super soldier? Where are they? How has this affected them? Who are they? What are they all about? We'll find out next on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. Hour number 2 coming up right after this. All right. Let's see what Dirty's got for us tonight. Oh, that's an alien in a green hoodie a reptilian in a green hoodie trying to get on an airplane.
There you go.
Very, very funny, Dirty Filth.
Men in Black's having nothing of it.
Oob to Joe's Bane, you've got aliens. It's awesome there, Dirty. Why'd you turn your microphone back to mute?
You know what that looks like? That looks like
Coffin
one
of
of the
death.
guys from that looks like one of the guys from Land of the Lost. I forget what they're called.
I'm gonna quickly go stretch. I'll be right back, guys. Dirty, tell everybody where they can find your book and your website.
Well, I go to filthy.com, FYLTHY.com, and you can buy my book there. Buy one for your mom, too, because she needs one. And get one for the bathroom to stick behind the toilet so you got something to read when you go to the washroom. I seen that lady on the plane video. I thought it was pretty interesting. Kind of wish we could have seen a picture of the guy. Hello, Whiskey. How come the shapeshifters are always depicted as reptilians? Why couldn't they just be like humanoid?
Well, they're shapeshifters. How do we know what they're supposed to look like? I mean, in
Yeah,
Star
good
Trek,
point.
they looked like water, right?
I was just gonna mention that. And then I was kind of thinking about all the old RPGs when they had changelings and everything, and they just kind of had this like
sure.
weird, semi-strange humanoid shape.
Absolutely.
I'd be pretty creeped out too if that happened. Sit on a plane and some guy's face just changes. Probably soil myself immediately.
Okie dokie. Well, you're filthy. It'd be like the Twilight Zone, you know? When Shatner sees the Shat, he sees the guy ripping the engine apart. I'm not crazy. Okay.
Isn't that the little goblin or the gremlin on the side of the airplane or whatever?
Yeah, it's a gremlin.
Yeah. Look at a gremlin sitting behind me, my little cat.
Oh, I thought you
That's
had the
weird.
car. The gremlin.
Oh no. That's Simpsons episode where there's a gremlin driving beside it, and Bart's like, "There's a gremlin on the side," and like pushed the car off the road. It was like an old man driving it. Oh, they had good writers back in the day.
Yeah,
Cloaking technology exists.
it does.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Oh, I've seen it. It definitely exists. No, I definitely saw
I
that.
think you mentioned we're something like 100 and some odd years ahead.
Yeah.
People all like they brought out that new stealth bomber or whatever, and they showed a couple pictures, and everyone's like, "That's the top of the line." And my work was saying that. I'm like, no, it's probably like really old and probably already out of service.
No, by the time you see it, it's antiquated. I mean, they've been flying. There's a triangular aircraft. I mean, they call it a TR-3, but there's some kind of triangular aircraft that they've been flying for at least 15 years. And if you look at the heat, like the heat dissipation coming off of it, it looks like it's running something called an aerospike engine. And what's funny is that if you watch Top Gun Maverick, you know, they paid Lockheed to build that Dark Star, and that plane is pretty much what people believe to have been flying around over our heads for years and years, because the Aurora didn't really work out very well. So they replaced it with something that looked like the Dark Star from Top Gun Maverick. But that plane most likely exists. And, the aerospike engines, I've seen evidence of aerospike engines on some of these aircraft going back at least 10 years. The aerospike is a very fascinating engine, but much like in Maverick, you can only engage it above, I think, 50 or 60,000 feet. Basically, when a turbine starts to lose power because the air is too thin, that's when you kick in the aerospike and you shut down the turbine and you fire the aerospike, and then the aerospike is good from about 50, 60,000 up to 100 something whatever thousand. And you'll easily push Mach 9, Mach 10 on it.
Well, that's fun stuff.
Oh yeah, the aerospike's impressive. It's a truly impressive engine. But yeah, the
Thank you, Dirty
Lockheed.
Phil.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Big thank you tonight to Deb, Phil, W. Decker, Twig, Kira, Dog, and Izzy Stradlin for the amazing super chats. Well, Izzy Beth. I call her Izzy Stradlin.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, boy, you're doing pretty good tonight, Dave.
Here we go, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Super Soldiers on tap for hour number 2 here of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vanner. Vanner is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go once again. Olav Phillips is here, author, researcher, publisher, podcaster, radio show host, enthusiast, a man who wears a lot of plaid. We love him around here because of his beard. And Olav, thank you so much for being here, my man.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I love doing SOR. It's always a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. We always have a blast with you, too.
Oh, yeah.
We really do. My man, super soldiers. What are they?
Super soldiers. Well, that is open to debate. It depends on who you ask. I think at the end of the day, it's some kind of a soldier who has been enhanced in some way. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. How they get enhanced, depends on which program you're talking about, depends on who you believe. But at the end of the day, it is a soldier that has been enhanced. His or her capability has been enhanced in some way.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at these people, we hear stories that these super soldiers are recruited at childhood. Is that true?
I don't know that we can tell one way or the other. It would make sense, that if you're gonna. First of all, we have to get past the elephant in the room, which is, there are some ethical questions and moral questions to the enhancement, right? But if you were going to do something off the books and sketchy, right, getting them from as a young child would be good, because you're you can perform some very sophisticated conditioning. And again, the moral and ethical ramifications aside, I think we all know where that goes, and it's nowhere good. But, if you want to build a true super soldier, it's a super soldier is not just I have adamantium bones and blades in my hands, and I can regenerate, and heal myself. It's also conditioning. You have to condition the human to kill, to kill without caring, to have no empathy, to be amoral, to be a sociopath effectively. And only then would it, I think, would it be really truly a super soldier who literally is like, go do that, and then they'll go do it unquestioningly, whether it's walk into a minefield or take out a machine gun nest or jump out of an airplane at a severely dangerously high altitude. Whatever. I think it goes, I think there's the conditioning, the mental conditioning, the physical conditioning, and whatever enhancement that they're using. I know they've played around with it, but
We have seen a lot of people come out as super soldiers over the years. Some
right.
of them sound very believable.
Yeah.
Others sound like they are just trying to play a game here to,
Yeah.
make an extra profit, shall
Right.
we speak? If we put that
Sure.
very, very politically correct. How do we tell if this is actually a true phenomena?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that anything with blue bird circle people, I would definitely not believe that. I think that's a load of BS, and I've been on the record for that for years. Blue circle bird people is not happening. I think the only way to really tell is to take that person and to subject them to, unfortunately, a lot of tests. Because if you're going to say you're a super soldier, I don't think it's I'm speaking, as somebody who knows biology, but I'm not a biologist or a biochemist, but I don't think you can undo it. The conditioning and the enhancements, whether it's drugs or whether it's biomechanical or whatever you're doing, I don't think you can really undo it. So I think that if somebody's going to put themselves out there as a super soldier, I think we need to take a look at their biology and see, okay, what's super about them, right?
Right.
I'll give you a case in point. There was a case back in, I think, the 90s. It was in the early 2000s that the Chinese were decided that they wanted to win a lot of gold medals, and so I think it started in the 80s, but it was in the Olympics in the late 90s, I think. They had selectively chosen their swimmers, and they had conditioned them, not only mentally conditioned them, brainwashed them, but they also subjected them to doping to build muscle mass faster, to use like steroids and other stuff. And they had chosen them and genetically modified them to have webbed feet and webbed hands. And it's not like, yeah, and they won, of course. I mean, they had webbed feet, but it's, you can't undo the webbing. But they actually did field a bunch of swimmers that they had done selective breeding effectively to create super swimmers that were physically conditioned, and the use of chemicals and chemistry to condition them, and they were also heavily mentally conditioned for swimming, and they did win. And the East Germans did it. There's a very famous case where there was a group within the Stasi that they were actively looking at how to, because they wanted East German athletes to win. It always seems to be the Olympics is where you kind of seem to test some of this stuff, but they spent decades designing steroid variants that could not be detected. and they had an entire department of chemists, biochemists, that were working on these very sophisticated steroids to so they could dope their athletes to win but not get detected, because as we all know, there's a bunch of anti-doping stuff in the Olympics, and they have to take urine tests and blood tests to confirm that they don't have steroids in their system, right? I mean, that was ultimately Lance Armstrong's downfall, right? Is that they caught him doping. And so these, they have a lot of testing in these regimes, and these Germans at the time were working actively on bypassing it. So, long story short, I think that if you're going to say you're a super soldier who's been in cryogenic stasis for God knows how many years, I think there would be evidence at a cellular level of damage from the hibernation, but also I think that there should be some evidence in their biology and physiology that they were modified. Otherwise, you're not exactly a super soldier, right? You're just a soldier.
So what would these soldiers be trained for? Is it war? Is it
Well,
spying? Is it Jason Bourne type situations?
well, what do you train a soldier to do? I mean, I have a friend. He was a Marine, and a bunch of these super soldiers say they were Marines, right? Well, he always told me something very interesting. He said, when you go in the Marines, that you may clock out as a clerk typist, right, or a cook, but at the end of the day, you're infantry. That all Marines, no matter what, are trained as infantry, and you may be a cook, but your primary occupation is that you're an infantryman or an infantry soldier. And so, if the base gets overrun, you may be a cook, but you're going out there with your rifle to defend the base. So, I think if you're going to have a super soldier, I think you would train them to be a soldier and to kill things. That's what the purpose of it is. And the cases where we do know for a fact that the government has messed around with that stuff, it was mostly pharmacological. You take something like PCP, you don't really hear much about PCP angel dust anymore, right? But back in the 80s, like PCP was a problem. And I actually saw somebody on PCP once, and they were in a rubber room, and they were literally ripping the rubber off the walls with their hands. I mean, the amount of strength this guy had was astronomical. But PCP was designed to give a person insane strength. Well, that's very useful if you're a soldier, right? I mean, it has the byproduct of causing psychosis down the road, but in the near term, if you wanted to create a bunch of soldiers that would run toward the machine guns and rip the enemy limb from limb, or lift up cars and do crazy things, PCP is a great way to get there. And it was used to test to see if they could build a super soldier pharmacologically, because that's the fastest, easiest method. Laying adamantium on somebody's bones, and that's not very realistic. It's not scalable either. Yeah.
Okay, so is it about creating a superior fighting force,
Yeah.
superior
Yeah.
spies,
No,
superior
I don't think
soldiers
it's.
in space in case the aliens come down and invade?
Well, who knows why they want superior soldiers? I would say having superior soldiers is always a benefit. I mean, we can look at the war in the Ukraine, and you can see that you've got one group that may be smaller, but they're very well trained for the most part. There are some that are not, but they're pretty well trained and they're highly motivated. And their kill ratio over a larger force that is ill-equipped and ill-trained, the combat efficiency that the Ukrainians achieve is very high because they're extremely motivated. And I mean, they're defending their country, you know, from an illegal invasion. But they're also, their professional military is very well trained. And so you're coming up against people who are not very well trained, and you see the end result. 97% commitment of ground forces to a war that's lasted 500 days It was supposed to take 3, right? That's superior training and superior effectiveness through training, through conditioning, and through motivation. So yeah, I mean, you always want a better soldier. I mean, the Nazis messed with it too. The SS through a selective breeding program and drugs, pharmacology, they were trying to build what they call the Nietzschean Übermensch, this idea of the Superman, and they thought they could achieve it through selective breeding and through selective reproduction. I guess breeding sounds too negative, but selective reproduction and drugs like steroids
Makes
and
sense.
and
Makes
conditioning.
sense.
Yeah, and even a normal soldier, right?
But does that not make like say what we see in Hollywood with the Bourne Identity and Jason Bourne and
Oh
Matt
yeah,
Damon's characters? Doesn't that make it a little bit more realistic?
oh yeah. I think there are people like Jason Bourne. I'm sure of it. But how do you achieve Jason Bourne? You achieve Jason Bourne through brainwashing, right? This is the Manchurian candidate, right? You achieve it through brainwashing and mental conditioning. You achieve it through physical conditioning. You achieve it through drugs, right? To build up muscle mass and other things. I mean, if you look at Jason Bourne, they didn't put nanobots in his blood. It's they physically conditioned him and mentally conditioned him and gave him a lot of drugs and trained the hell out of him until abusively trained him until he could do what he does in the movie. John Wick too. I mean, if you watch John Wick, you know, obviously whatever they did to John Wick, they conditioned him to do. And you kind of see a snapshot of it when he goes in to ask them to smuggle him to Morocco. You're seeing I know they're doing ballet, but you can see their conditioning. That is physical and mental conditioning that you're watching. And you produce the Baba Yaga.
I can see that. I
Yeah.
can see that. What is the like? Do we know where they train these soldiers? Do we know
No.
where they uh, do this? Is there, is it CIA? Is it NSA? Where is this getting done? Do
Well,
you think?
it's not going to be the NSA, right? Because the NSA is signals intelligence. It would be the CIA. But I think more than likely it's probably some kind of contractor like a Blackwater, right? Where they have these black sites, and in the black sites off the books, because you're not going to get congressional approval doing something like this. The Pentagon is not going to approve this kind of stuff. And you can even see it in the movies, right? It's like, oh, Project XYZ, that, oh, we don't want to talk about that. We're going to kill people if they want to talk about that. So I think it's probably something, if it does exist, which I'm sure it does to some extent, at least a few individuals. I think that it's probably taking place in some kind of off the books black site in some third world country somewhere. That would be my assumption.
Would the Americans be the only ones doing this?
Oh, no. No, no. I mean, when you talk about spies, for example, right? The
Mhm.
Russians, well, the Soviets, let's make a very clear distinction there. The Soviets built an American city in the middle of nowhere, and that had all American stuff, American cars, American drinks, American food. The people there wore American clothes, they spoke English, and it was a KGB training facility for deep cover long-term assets. These they call them undoc or not, was it undocumented? Well, anyway, they were the residents, and they would assume the identity of children who had died at birth, and they would give them social security numbers and send them in, and then they would assume cover roles inside the United States, and they were heavily conditioned to function. It's not just a TV show. It really did happen. But they were, they might be your cab driver, right? And then they would be activated to carry out certain tasks. The Americans and people in Western Europe and NATO, we did things like that too. It's not as well known. But no, there are programs to make super spies and super soldiers, of course. But I do think that the super spies, I think, is probably a little different scenario that probably is more understood. But the super soldier thing, I think it would have to be off the books at a black site somewhere in some, third world country, buried deep in the jungle somewhere or the desert.
The idea that these people are walking around and they may not even know that they are Manchurian candidates. How do we know how they would be activated or what would trigger them? Have you ever talked to any of them?
I talked to somebody who said that they were one of them a long time ago. And in her case, she said that they messed with her DNA and combined her DNA with an animal to achieve a certain kind of bone development and muscle development and sense acuity. But I think if you're going to have somebody like a Manchurian candidate, right, that kind of brainwashing, and there was a program called Monarch, supposedly. There's not real good evidence for it, okay? But supposedly there was something called Monarch. And Operation Monarch was designed to do exactly what you're talking about. That they were assassins and super soldiers. And they were psychologically conditioned and physically conditioned from being small children. And again, it was and they used trauma-based conditioning, which it's as bad as you think it is. But yeah, they were given trigger words. Some kind of arcane like sentence or combination of words that would activate their conditioning, just like the Manchurian candidate, right? To achieve that kind of trauma-based conditioning, it's my understanding you would use an activation word or actually an activation phrase, but it would have to be something really obscure and arcane. Like the moon is blue on the 2nd of December, and then their conditioning would activate. And one of the things that they would do, at least supposedly in Operation Monarch, is that they would, through trauma, they would create what's called a split personality or personality split. And so there's this one personality that is just a stone cold killer, total sociopath. The other personality is just a normal person, and they could control which personality you're phasing in and phasing out of based on the activation. So like I could say the blue moon on the 2nd of December and Dave becomes a stone cold sociopath. And then I say the yellow moon on the 2nd of December and you become the most docile, pleasant, nice person in the world.
We've got about 1 minute to go here. With this super soldier program, do we hear that it's still continuing today?
Well, supposedly Monarch was shut down. And again, there's a book called Operation Mind Control that talks about Monarch, but there's not mountains and mountains of evidence about Monarch. And you have other people, who claim to have been conditioned in that way. But supposedly they shut down. But I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble to build the infrastructure for something like Monarch, I doubt you would shut it down. You might rename it, but you wouldn't shut it down.
Olaf, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We have Olav Phillips, author, researcher, podcaster, man with a great beard who knows how to swing an axe up in the mountains of Oregon.
No, California.
We love you, man. California, wherever you may be.
Wherever.
I don't know where you are.
Mountains.
Somewhere in a mountain, digging a hole for his new cave, Cutting the
Bunker.
trees down like a door. Spaced Out Radio with Olav Phillips continues right after this. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Having fun tonight, man.
Yeah, it's going pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it always seems to when I'm on SOR.
It's always fun.
You know, I saw a video that's supposedly one of the trauma conditioning videos.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's bad.
Well, remember, we still are on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to show it to you, but it's bad.
And
It's bad. It's super bad, and it has these tones too, because they use tones as well. It's bad.
mm-hmm.
Well, read Operation Mind Control by Walter Boart. It's about Monarch. You know, it's the one like Ultra MK Ultra sub project kind of thing that nobody ever wants to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about Midnight Climax or the Special Study 27, I think it was, when they went to Napa and they went to Fairfield. I think it's Fairfield or Vacaville. But the LSD stuff and the other things, but they don't want to talk about Monarch. But there's Monarch sketchy. The information is sketchy. It's bad though. It's not pleasant. I don't like talking about Monarch. Let's talk about Midnight Climax.
The hell is that?
Midnight Climax?
Yeah.
It was part of MK Ultra. Basically, what they did is this one. I forget the guy's. I'm always terrible with names, but this one guy, he wanted to test LSD as an interrogation tool, and so they created a brothel. Actually, two. One was in San Francisco on Chestnut Street, and the other one was in Marin somewhere. And they created this brothel, and what they would do is they would go and they'd solicit the Johns. The Johns would come in and they'd pay the money, and the prostitute would say, "Hey, why don't you have some water before we start the festivities?" And the water was laced with LSD, and so the guy would start tripping, and when he started tripping, the prostitute would basically interrogate him, and the prostitute had a predetermined list of questions, and they had two-way mirrors or one-way mirrors, guy behind the mirror thing. And there was a guy back there who ran the program, and he would film it. And eventually they determined that they had a couple of guys jump out the window, and then the cops got involved and it got real messy, so they stopped doing the LSD part. And then he started to hypothesize how you could do basically like sex warfare. And so he started having the prostitutes do these basically like sexual warfare things. And then he wrote a book about the use of sex and espionage, like a manual.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've never seen the manual, but I know it exists. It's kind of like the CIA assassination manual. It was written actually by a magician, and it exists, but getting a copy of it is very very difficult. But it's funny too, because like it's very specific. It's like if you're going to murder somebody, you have to hit them on the right temple with a blunt object. Then you have to throw them out a window higher than 10 stories. And so, you can look at people who got hit in the right temple and got thrown out of a building above 10, story 11 or higher. You can actually see murders where this took place, or suicides, right? Where this took place. And the idea was that if you hit them in the temple, it knocks them unconscious. You throw them out the window, and then it looks like a suicide because their head is all bashed in when they hit the ground. And if they're above the 10th floor, you're guaranteed that they'll die when they hit the surface.
Oh, my.
But it was written by a magician.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we got about 1 minute here.
Yeah. The things I know.
No luscious jewels. Jeremy Jones, how you doing? Philip Baca, what's happening? Abnormal Investigations, how you doing? No, we are not dropping links to Redacted. This is not a show for that channel. We don't do things about children in here. Okay? So I'd appreciate that. Hi, Major Lee. And we got about 15 seconds. Thank you, Izzy, Dog, Kira, Twig, W. Decker, Phil, and Deb for the super chats. Very much appreciate it. Here we go, everyone. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Final time tonight, we have our good friend Olav Phillips with us as we were talking super soldiers tonight. Olav, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right.
Question coming from our audience for you. This is from Mr. Eon, voice of the gods. Why can't you take electricity to... Oh, that's a joke, actually. I'm not going to...
Okay.
It says, why can't you take electricity to social outings? Because it doesn't know how to conduct itself.
That's a good one.
That's a bad dad pun right there.
That is a terrible... That's a good one, though. I like
it.
That
It is
one.
good. It is good. It's bad, but it's good.
So bad it's good.
Have we ever seen super soldiers in action, or do you believe you have?
I don't know. That's a hard question because, I mean, if you do it right, you wouldn't know. I think possibly in Vietnam that they may have tested it because they, in Vietnam, they did a lot of really sketchy stuff, And so I wouldn't put it past them that they tried it in Vietnam. I think you may have seen them in smaller scale deployments in various places as mercenaries being tested. Because, I don't think if you're going to field something like that, I don't think the U.S. government's going to field it. I think it's going to come from somebody like a Blackwater would do it. So you might see some show up in something that a Blackwater type organization or the Wagner guys, or you might see that show up there. But I don't think you've ever seen a large scale deployment of it. And frankly, I don't think there is a large scale deployment. The only known attempt at a super soldier was the 1st Earth Battalion. And that's the whole men who stare at goats thing. That was an attempt to turn Green Berets into psychic super soldiers. And, the Soviets, they worked on that stuff too. I think you probably did see some, in World War II with the SS units, especially, the Einsatz groups. I think there were probably some attempted Nazi super soldiers in the Einsatz, because the Einsatz were very small. They were basically political murder squads. And so I think you probably saw them in the Einsatz. I think probably the Soviets, might have attempted to use some of them during World War II or during Afghanistan. But I don't think you've ever seen a large scale deployment, maybe onesie, twosies, probably through a contractor of some kind. So you would never
Right.
know.
Doesn't that seem a little dangerous to be putting super soldiers through contract companies like Blackwater or something along those lines?
Oh yeah, but if it, it's unfortunate, but if you look at like the Wagner guys, right, in the Ukraine, Prigozhin, the purpose of Prigozhin was to get an army that would do really bad stuff. Not that the Russian army is doing great stuff, hitting civilian targets, but to get a group of people that were really, really bad and do really, really bad things, but the government isn't culpable for it. I mean, we did it with Blackwater. These black site interrogation sites, these were Blackwater sites. You need to waterboard somebody, you send them over to Blackwater. That's they do the things that we don't want to do. That's what they're there for. But of course it's dangerous. The minute you have a private army of any kind, it's dangerous because they're not beholden to anybody. Eric Prince wasn't beholden to anyone. He could send his guys out, to do whatever, right? And the things that they did, there were atrocities that are documented. So yeah, I think it's super dangerous. I think that the militaries should be under the control of a civilian government, the way we do it here in the United States or in Canada or in NATO, the aligned countries of NATO. We have citizen soldiers. Our soldiers are normal citizens like you and me. They've chosen to serve their countries, and it works. The only mercenary group like that works is the French Foreign Legion. But the French Foreign Legion, which is a mercenary group, the French Foreign Legion is under the French army. They're not independent. They don't go do what they want, right? But again, they send the French Foreign Legion in to do the really hard stuff, and they're trained and conditioned for it. But no, I think armies should be under civilian governments and controlled by professional officers, a professional officer corps, and we should not indulge in things like super soldiers or any of that kind of crap. It's just not. It's dangerous. It's not a good idea.
Are super soldiers and the secret space program compatible with one another?
Well, I think the argument is that if you're going to have somebody fighting off planet, right, which a lot of these people who claim to be super soldiers, that's what they say they did. A lot of them are from Mars, right? I even talked to one once, Captain K, Randy Kramer, and he tells a very good story, and it's like, it's very palatable, the story. And, it's like, if you're going to have a soldier that's going to fight in the harshness of space or on a place like Mars or the moon, right? You know, a super soldier who's enhanced, that makes a lot of sense because, the dynamics of how you would fight on Mars and in an airless environment like the moon, it requires a lot of conditioning, physical conditioning. So I think it would make sense to deploy a super soldier, and maybe you screwed with their biology so that they can handle radiation better. It's kind of like Dune, the guild pilots or the guild navigators. They were conditioned through the use of spice to fold space, and they become really weird looking creatures because they needed to be conditioned to operate in that kind of harshness. And so fighting in space and on other planets and things, I think it would be beneficial to be hardened against radiation or more physically conditioned. Yeah, it would make more sense to send them off world. But that's also, that's Blade Runner, right? The replicants were supposed to fight in the off world colonies. They came back here because they were pissed off and they didn't want to die. But they're all, Roy Batty's a combat leader. Leon's he's an ammunition loader. Zora is a political part of a political murder squad. They're all Pris is a rest and relaxation expert. But they're all military, right? Roy was the combat leader. So optimal self-sufficiency, they say. So, following that line, it would make sense to deploy a super soldier like a replicant into space, not here.
Okay, so what about the 20 and back program? Explain what that is to our listeners who may not know.
Well, basically, I think it really started with Captain K and Randy Kramer, and there are others who have come out now that say they were part of it too. And they were basically Marines that were part of this secret space program, and they were on these bases on Mars and in the ships, and they were conditioned and modified to be able to fight, and they would in these harsh conditions, and they would be in cryogenic stasis for many, many, many years. But because of that, they didn't age the same. So they're much older than they look because they spent so much time in cryogenic stasis and they were modified. And then eventually, when their tours are up, then they are released back to the earth, and they live out their retirement at a young age. They live out their retirement here. That's basically the long and short of it.
Do you buy that we have had soldiers up on Mars?
I buy that we have had soldiers on Mars. I'm willing to go for the idea that we had super soldiers on Mars. Randy Kramer has a very palatable story, and he's very specific. I asked him once, I said, because I interviewed him once, and I said, how many bases were there on Mars? And he says, I have no idea. I was on one, and I know there was at least one other, but they didn't tell us that. They told us, put on your spacesuit and go do drills over here, or go over here and do this, or go over here and do that. He's like, I have no knowledge of how many ships there are, what the names of the ships are, where they are, how big they are. He's like, I have no idea because I wasn't part of that. So, his specificity makes it more believable. I think what's lacking, and it's a good, you know, if anybody's telling the truth, it's Randy Kramer. But what's lacking is evidence. You know, if you have nanobots in your blood, you have nanobots in your blood. If you were in cryogenic stasis, I would imagine that there's some level of cellular damage. If you were on Mars for an extended period of time, whether you're conditioned to it or not, there should be some radiation damage at a cellular level. You can't escape it. So, and if you were modified, the remnants of the modification should be visible in some way. So that I think is missing, at least to my knowledge.
But how do you prove a 20 and back? I mean, without the government coming out and showing your records that you're a 20 and back person, how do you even prove that?
Well, you'd have to prove the modifications that were made. And you would have to prove the extended exposure to like radiation. Because when you stand on the surface of the moon, which has no atmosphere, or you stand on the surface of Mars, which has very little atmosphere, I forget the name of the guy you have on that does the space stuff, but you can ask him. You will experience radiation damage at a cellular level. Our astronauts, when they come back, they have radiation damage. You're also talking about conditions where, the gravity is decreased. That causes bone thinning and muscle loss. And you can account for some of those things, but you can't account for all of them. So there should be some remnant of something somewhere that tells you that this guy was exposed to extreme amounts of radiation, or was in a 0G or low gravity environment, or he was modified. Because if you modify something, you can't remove everything. It just doesn't work that way. And it's not like you're using a DNA the zipper on a living organism, right? So, and you're doing gene splicing when they're alive. I mean, I guess you could, but there should be some evidence somewhere that indicates that you were exposed to these environments or you were modified.
I'm just trying to figure out, I remember Randy Kramer's story. I haven't had him on the air in a long time.
But it's good. I mean, it sounds real, at least to me. I mean, I thought it sounded legit, right?
I'm still up in the air about him because I've met him face to face, and I I just have a lot of questions.
Well, of
A lot
course,
of questions.
there's no evidence. There's evidence. Like you can say, okay, well, I was a Marine. Here's my DD 214. Shows I was trained at Parris Island. I was in the First Marine Division. I received gunner training or tow training or whatever. That's all in there, right? You can get a
Right.
guy's DD 214 and say, okay, you were a U.S. Marine, but you don't get a DD 214 that says, well, I was assigned to Olympus Mons and Mars, right? So there's what he's got is no evidence. There's no proof, and so you have to take it at face value. And with any situation like this in the woo zone, right? You know, evidence is paramount. Without evidence, it's just the story. It could be a very compelling story, but it's just a story. And having a bunch of other people show up and say, well, that was me too, with no evidence, it's just more stories. So, I give him the benefit of the doubt that it sounds plausible what he's saying, like describing, but there's no evidence. And until there's evidence, it's still woo.
I know,
And
and I love
and
that. Woo.
yeah, and 90% of what I tell you when I come on the show, it's woo too. I can't prove to you Monarch existed. I can prove to you Operation Climax existed. I can prove to you Ultra existed. I can prove to you that the East Germans had a governmental doping program, or that the Chinese, genetically engineered swimmers with web feet, but I can't prove to you that the 20 and back is real. I can't prove to you that Monarch is real. And I mean, Monarch's awful. I mean, it's trauma-based mind control in children. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets, but there's no proof. There's stories, but 20 and back is the same thing. How would I prove it? Only Randy Kramer or one of the 20 and back people can prove it. And this is a pandemic problem across all of this stuff. You get I forget the name of the guy. What's the guy's name? The guy who supposedly traveled in time with the chronovisor. His name is on the tip of my tongue, but he claims you traveled in time. It's like, okay, what's the proof? His revelations of he was going to become president or whatever. Well, that didn't work out. So I guess I don't know. But a lot of this stuff is wooey. There's very little evidence, but there are a lot of stories, and the stories are entertaining, but you can't prove it.
Do you buy somebody like time traveler, chrononaut, child chrononaut, Andrew Bashago?
Bashago, yeah. No, I don't. I don't believe it. Nice guy, but I don't believe it. Because what he's saying is it's too dangerous. It's simply too dangerous because of the butterfly effect to do the kinds of things that he was talking about. Chronovisor? Maybe. But again, there's never any evidence, and it's always a lot of, well, I was a little kid. I think he was a teenager when he was doing some of this stuff. And it's like, okay. I know a guy who played basketball with Obama in Florida or in Hawaii, right?
Right.
But he has proof. He went to the same school. He's got the yearbook. It's like I can verify that. And even Bob Lazar, he has a W-2 from the Department of Naval Intelligence. Right? He was in the Los Alamos phone book as a scientist. I mean, there's evidence. He has a bullet hole. He had a bullet hole in the back of his Corvette. I saw it. The element 115 thing, and there's no proof of that, sure, but there's evidence that he was at least operating in that sphere. There's no evidence that Bashago was traveling in time, and unfortunately for Randy Kramer, there's very little evidence that Randy was on Mars. But I don't doubt it. There has to be some proof if you want it to be that solid. Otherwise, you just have to take it for what it is and say, well, it sounds plausible. you know. And Bashargo in particular, you know, he made a lot of prognostications about how he was some dark horse presidential candidate. Yeah, he never got elected, so you know.
That's the one. I think a lot of people would have taken Andrew Bashago a lot more seriously if he didn't bring up the presidential run.
Yeah, but there's a problem, and you see it with the blue circle bird people too. There's this notion of doubling down, and you see this a lot in the woo zone, right? That somebody will have a genuine experience. They'll see a UFO, you know. They might have even seen the occupants, right? But then it's not enough. They got to double down and make it bigger. Yeah, that's the one thing where I give Lazar credit. Lazar is very specific and has been telling the same story for over 20 years of what he did, where he did it, how he did it. The details have never changed. And there's enough evidence there to show, so despite what the late Stanton Friedman would tell you, there's plenty of evidence to show that Lazar was operating in that sphere, that kind of secret squirrel kind of sphere. So, you know, and his details do not change ever. But with the others, there's, yeah, they double down, you know, and they keep doubling down until they send pictures of Nazi moon bases that come out of a movie, which is laughable, you know. But there's always this notion of doubling down to make the story better, to sell more books. And you see it across the board. You know, it happens a lot.
We've got about 3 minutes to go here.
Okay.
Olaf, where do you see all of this going? You know, as we start to learn more about ufology, we see the whistleblowers coming out. Where do you see this going?
Well, they've got Marco Rubio on this whistleblower thing, and he's staking his political career on it. So, you know, I'm very interested to see where this guy goes. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, what are they covering up? You know, this guy comes out and says all this crazy stuff. What's really going on? You know, and the day that he comes out is the day the Ukrainians counterattack, right? So I'm thinking this is to obscure something, but you know, it's got political inertia. So I'm really curious to see where this goes, because they're putting in front of the Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee and the Congress and all this. So I'm really curious where this goes, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How can people find your radio show?
So my radio show, the Enigma Hour, which is 2 hours, by the way, the Enigma Hour with Captain Tiki, is broadcast live on KADLP in Sonora, California, on 103.5 FM. You can listen live on kaad-lp.org. And you can, the podcast, I'm recording them and putting them up. The podcast is on Apple Podcasts. It's on was a TuneIn and a couple others. And you can find me on Instagram on Captain Tiki Show, and I'm on Facebook just as Olav Phillips. You can find me there.
I think that's wonderful, my man. And
Thank
it's
you.
always, and you know what? We got a lot of archives that you've been on here as well over the years on Spaced Out Radio. You always make it fun, my man. I don't know how you do it, but each and every night, it's every time we have you on, it's always an amazing type show.
You have an amazing show, Dave, and I love coming on it. So, you know, I think the host, I've been on a lot of shows, and I think the host really makes the show, and I think you really do make the show wonderful. So,
Well,
it's
that's
not
because
me,
I have a
it's
face for
you.
radio, buddy. Face for radio.
You and me both, but you make this show awesome. So it's not me, it's you.
Oh, well, we'll agree to disagree
We'll
with
just agree
that,
on that.
you know, but let us continue the UFO argument another day, my man.
Yes, you got it. Anytime, anywhere, man. You let me know.
We appreciate it. Olav Phillips, everybody, author, researcher. He's got a new book, hopefully coming out soon, with Alan Greenfield, which will be a good one.
Yes,
And
the Black Lodge reveal, or Secrets of the Black Lodge revealed.
Hopefully soon.
End of the month.
End of the month. We'll have to get them both back on for that.
Oh,
Coming up next, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then little Timmy Cedor has the UFO report on Spaced Out Radio. All right, my man, we are clear. Thank you. Appreciate
thank you. I appreciate you too. All right. Talk to you later.
We'll talk soon, okay?
Absolutely. All right.
Bye-bye. I'm going to go cool down. It is warm in here. Warm, I tell you. Warm. right. I'm almost ready for some little Timmy Cedor, aren't you? Let's see here. Oh, Deb, thank you for the love, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you to Deb times 2, Phil W. Decker, Twig, Kira, Dog, and Izzy Stradlin. Oh, and Dog again. Thank you, my friend. You guys are awesome. Thank you for the love. Oh, and CS, you too.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Welcome, everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vanner. Vanner is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let us hit up Steve Stockton from the YouTube channel Among the Missing, where we take a look at another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Hello, once again, Wondering Wonders. Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome to another ATM on SOR. Tonight, we bring you the story of the Sterling Opera House in Derby, Connecticut. Haunted or not, you be the judge. Let's walk and see. Nestled in the heart of Derby, Connecticut, stands an iconic structure that has captivated the imagination of locals and visitors alike for over a century. The Sterling Opera House, with its majestic architecture and rich history, is not only a symbol of the town's past, but a reported hotspot for paranormal activity. Whispers of ghostly encounters and eerie phenomena have surrounded this historic venue, making it a magnet for those seeking a spine-chilling experience. Built in 1889, the Sterling Opera House was a hub of cultural and social activity in its heyday. The opulent Victorian-style building boasted a grand auditorium adorned with intricate woodwork, stained glass windows, and a magnificent proscenium arch. It showcased a wide range of performances, from the opera to the theater to lectures and concerts, drawing crowds from near and far to see such luminaries as Bob Hope and Harry Houdini. However, as the years passed, the Sterling Opera House fell into disrepair. The once thriving venue was eventually closed in 1945, leaving behind an empty shell steeped in history and ghostly legends. Locals began to whisper about mysterious sightings, sounds, and a palpable sense of unease within the abandoned theater. The most enduring tales involves the ghost of a young actress named Sarah. It has it that Sarah was madly in love with a fellow actor, but their romance was forbidden. Heartbroken and unable to bear the pain, she took her own life backstage. Since then, numerous witnesses claim to have seen a spectral figure in a flowing gown, lingering in the wings, or drifting across the stage. Some even report hearing disembodied voices whispering her name, adding an eerie aura to the already haunting atmosphere. Another ghostly presence said to haunt the Sterling Opera House is that of a former caretaker named Frederick. Described as a tall, shadowy figure dressed in old-fashioned clothing, Frederick is rumored to be a protective spirit, watching over the building from beyond the grave. Visitors have reported feeling a comforting presence or catching glimpses of an apparition in the upper balcony. It is believed that Frederick's spirit remains tethered to the Opera House due to his profound attachment to the place. In addition to these ghostly apparitions, paranormal investigators and thrill seekers alike have reported a variety of unexplained phenomena within the Sterling Opera House. Doors are said to slam shut on their own, lights flicker without cause, and unidentifiable footsteps echo through the empty halls. Some have claimed to feel sudden drops in temperature or an inexplicable touch on their shoulder, as if an unseen entity is attempting to make contact. Over the years, these spine-chilling encounters have drawn the attention of paranormal enthusiasts, leading to numerous investigations and ghost hunts at the Sterling. Mediums, psychics, and ghost hunters have flooded to the venue, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. While skeptics remain unconvinced, those who have experienced these phenomena firsthand swear by the haunting presence that permeates the building. Despite its haunted reputation, the Sterling Opera House continues to hold a special place in the hearts of Derby residents. Efforts to restore and preserve this cultural landmark have been underway, with hopes of reviving it to its once former glory while respecting its haunted history. The building now serves as a venue for community events, weddings, and small-scale performances, allowing visitors to immerse themselves in the echoes of the past. Do you believe in the paranormal events that happened at the Sterling Opera House, or if you just appreciate a historic building? If you're in the Derby, Connecticut area, drop by and see what you experience. Well, there you have it, friends. Look forward to your comments about this wonderful old building. Thanks again for listening to ATM on SOR. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll see you a little further on down the trail.
We love Steve Stockton around here, putting out these great stories for us to kick off hour number 3 each and every night. If you want something just like that, just head on over to his channel, youtube.com/Among the Missing, and we can make sure that everything goes just perfectly for you when you go for your nightly bout of creepiness. Yeah, from the creepy stories to the woo and tinfoil of Tim Cedor. Here comes the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Tim Cedor, big question from Penny Van in our chat room. What is the white dot thing on the uncovered corner of your window? What white dot thing? I got the 2 white dots on my Canadian flag in the middle right here. Those are actually from the lights above me. I'm not seeing a white dot. Not seeing it. Not seeing it whatsoever. Do you see a white dot around me, Tim?
Not around you. I've got one up in the corner of my room, but that's just soundproofing leaking in through my curtains. But I don't think that's what she's talking about. I don't know. The white dot.
She says it's still there. Hold on. I'm not seeing it.
It's on yours. It's probably on her screen. Penny, just clean your screen.
Clean your screen, Penny.
It's right here.
I'm just not seeing it.
Clean it. It's just.
I'm not seeing it.
Wow, you got. Look at that solid head of hair, folks. Wow.
Yeah, there is no male pattern baldness here whatsoever.
I'm so jealous. You and me are just like day and night when it comes to follicles.
I know.
You are blessed. Look at that.
I am. White dot. Oh, there is a white dot on Dirty Filth's Cryptid Cartoons book. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know.
This makes for good radio, though. I'll tell you that.
It does. It does. Sometimes the radio audience misses out a little bit because of little epic voyages like this. Okay, my neighbor's outside light is on.
Oh,
I don't
there
think
you
that's
go.
what
Maybe.
you're talking about.
No. She says to the left on the book on the glass. To the left of the book on the glass.
Oh, Well, that's a little sign that reads, "Gnome one like you." It's a picture of a gnome.
There it is.
Maybe that's it.
We've solved the mystery.
Could be. I'm going to be changing up the studio here in the next little bit before you get here, little Timmy Cedor. So
make it a bicycle built for two.
Well, I can put a couple people in here. That's not an issue.
Sweet.
It's more about just I don't like the look of it. Don't like the look of it. It is. It's way too cluttered in here.
Is it too Canadian-y?
No. What do you mean too Canadian? It's not
maybe 2/3 of your space is dominated by Canada.
What? Because I have a flag blocking my window? It's a beautiful flag.
It's a
beautiful flag.
I thought you just really liked the devil's like lettuce.
Stripes.
Well, I had to. Oh yeah, that was for 4th of July celebration, but it looks good in combination with your maple leaf.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure it out. All right.
Good.
Now that we got that mystery solved. All right. Oh my goodness! I do have a nice back head of hair. Look at that.
Isn't it gorgeous? I'm so jelly. People are dropping all kinds of compliments in the chat. You've got some hair fans.
Of course. Too bad our radio audience can't see how luscious my locks really are.
Hair and beard combination guy. That's you.
Very true. Very, very true. All right, well, let's talk some UFOs because it's been a very, very slow week or so. But according to Chat GPT tonight, I don't know if you've heard this.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Thanks for Cliff Sy in our chat room pointing out that we may be getting more talks as early and hearings as early as this week. Like we're talking within the next 48 hours.
Mm-hmm. Do tell.
Well, that's all the information I have. I've been trying to find it on Twitter, not really seeing it there. Maybe this is something new. You know, I'm not sure. Really not sure.
Very interesting, though. I would love that. I haven't heard a thing, but my head has been buried in production. But I tell you, that wouldn't surprise me. And I've heard, by the end of July. So that fits with what I'd heard, but I didn't know that soon. That would be great. Let's get this thing rolling. Are you talking like you heard public hearings?
Yeah. So, apparently there could be more hearings coming up this week and by the end of the month, where we're going to hear maybe from more whistleblowers. Now, how many of those whistleblowers actually pull a David Grush and come out publicly, we don't know. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and that kind of hits on my first topic. Should I dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Washington Examiner is bringing us an article all about kind of how and why the UFO whistleblowers are getting a mixed reaction from the public, politics, and the media. And even though those UFO incidents that they've brought forward, the statements are massive and the indications are huge of the possible cover-up, they still lack a lot of the physical evidence that, a lot of people are considering would make it more credible. And so now, take Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence Scott Bray, for example. Bray was criticized by some UFO researchers for supposedly failing to be forthcoming during a UFO briefing to Congress in May of 2022. But this criticism may or may not be justified because still Bray is extremely well regarded in the U.S. intelligence community, especially for his work on other issues. Rather than being disingenuous, his testimony likely reflected his absence of interest in the UFO topic. And so, that's something else to be considered, that a lot of the people that are talking about this don't have a deep understanding or interest. So the topic isn't really covered very well, even when it is brought forward by supposed whistleblowers or people coming forward on the topic. So there is still quite a bit of government bureaucracy that we're having to get through, and still lingering UFO stigma, right? The UFO stigma surrounding this topic, or surrounding this topic, doesn't just exist in the media. It extends across the government and the military also. And so consider that most intelligence officers, military, air crews, and submariners are focused on very obvious threats from nations outside of the USA. And so those threats demand their training and attention. And so the intersection of these demands with government bureaucracy and the UFO stigma thus disincentivizes the discussion of UFOs with those people. And so I think that's a poignant point, really, to be making at this time. There's so much going on that this topic could seem like kind of a backseat to some of the more heated topics that our military needs to be focused on. So it's cool to see that Congress has taken an interest in the possibility of exotic metals and vehicles, and a body of evidence pointing towards bodies and things like that. But it seems like individuals like Grush that come forward are going to continue to meet a mixed reaction when it comes to diving deeper into the truth behind some of these matters. Over to you, Dave. But kind of, what are your thoughts when you're hearing that blanket kind of reception to this topic?
It's hard to say, because, I mean, I don't know whether it's more wool being pulled over our eyes or whether this is something that's going to move the ball forward. How do you feel?
I personally feel like it's a massive distraction from the fact that I feel like they know already, but they can only say so much publicly on the topics. That's my gut reaction, because you see some of the people that come out of these meetings ready to talk about this topic deeper with the public. And then there's some people that come out of the same meeting that have their lips shut, and either they received it as being totally nonsense or something so big that they can't or won't respond to publicly. So the people that are willing to talk about it are typically people that have been read into something that they believe, and they're willing to talk publicly about it and feel like the public have a right to know. But me personally, I'm very much right down the middle right now. It's very hard to say what part of the story is true. And I think I'm right there with you, scratching my head, asking you the same question. Where are you at this? And where's our audience at it? Where's the public at with, on this topic? Because we've been given quite a lot of information without any evidence yet. So, hearsay is only as good as you can, throw it.
Well, how would it help? How much more would it help, though, Tim, if the whistleblowers came out to the public? They're protected. They're allowed. Okay. I realize some may not want to, because they've been involved, or maybe currently still involved, in some sort of clandestine operation, and for national security may not be able to do that. All right. But on the flip side, I think that they should be allowed to say, hey, my name is John Smith or Jill Smith, and this is what I witnessed pertaining to this subject above. I think if we allowed these people to be more David Grush and less secretive, the movement would have a little bit more movement, if we could use that term. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because we could do all the talking that we want, but eventually the talking is going to bore people. It's like, the Apollo missions, man. We were going up to the moon, and then all of a sudden it stopped because we didn't want to waste money on it anymore. Well, what's the answers to what's going on here? Right? What's your answers to what's going on in the world when it comes to this subject? What are they hiding? And more importantly, what is Congress hiding regarding this? Because we only get to see the superficial stuff. They get the juice. They get the full glasses of juice. Okay. And that's what I want to see. That's what the public needs to see. You don't have to give us the top secret stuff, but give us something. Give us something that's in one of those reports that David Grush let out. What's wrong with that? Give us a nibble. We are mature enough. If we're enough, here's the way I look at it. If we're mature enough to vote for you, be mature enough to give us the explanation and the information. Your thoughts?
Well, how did you feel when you realized that the 1933 crash retrieval was what was being referenced to in the Grush speech? Did that make you feel that, hey, there was a line of evidence that we can point to? Did it feel like it was a more justified case for his line of explanation? Or do you feel that that case was debunked years ago, and so it makes his story less credible? Because I don't know if it was truly debunked. That was what my understanding was. But when you hear things like that, do you feel that perhaps his statements are made based on information that may have led him this way? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he believes that we have crashed craft, but the story that he got it from is actually a debunked story, but he doesn't know it was debunked. You know what I mean? Is that possible? Is that what we're seeing here?
Well, I mean, it all depends who comes out after him, right? I mean, if more senior officials come out with higher security clearance than David Grush, then we're getting into something very, very unique and interesting. Right?
Right. And what if we came up with the firsthand witnesses to the craft? Because then that debunked story goes out the window. But do you feel like a firsthand witness is good enough, or do you need to have the photographs or video, or do you need something beyond? What about firsthand witness? Is that good enough?
I would take a firsthand witness. I think we have heard from a firsthand witness who just hasn't come out about it yet. And I would suggest that, and with no proof, but I would suggest that firsthand witness is Lou Elizondo.
Oh, tasty. Yeah.
I'll throw that out there. Yeah. Lou, you've been out in the public long enough. Tell us your experiences. There's a whole world of wonderment that have let rumors go all across the internet about what you've seen and what you've heard. Maybe it's time to open up to the public about what you've experienced.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't sure also sometimes, so it's just one of those things.
That's right. Little Timmy Cedor, we got him till the top of the hour. Are you sick of whistleblowers? Do they mean anything to you when it comes to UFOs? We're going to continue the chatter when we return with Tim Cedor and the UFO Report right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. Timmy.
And yes, I have the rest of the night. When we come back, I have some fun stuff, and it's not political. It's all fun. I see you, dog. Right on. Your chat is fun. I actually have it up. I'm not reading it all the time, guys, but I am glancing at it. So if you want to throw questions in. How are you, Dave?
You know what? I tired. I made the mistake of having a really, really heavy nap after my daytime job.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
bad.
And it just kind of knocked me down a little bit. That's okay. That's
Breathe
okay.
some life into you.
Yeah.
Your
I
first
had a-
guest was fun, by the way.
Yeah, Olaf is great.
Yeah.
He is just wonderful. I had I told the audience earlier, but on Saturday night we had a really, really cool experience at our Sasquatch site.
Do tell. By
I
your
don't know.
house here?
Yeah, well, the one we go to every Saturday night, or try to go every Saturday night.
Cool.
And so I was sitting with my buddy Mikey on his tailgate of his truck, and my son is kind of like 25 feet away to the right, playing in this big dirt pile, because for some reason he thinks he's Godzilla to the ants that are crawling on there. Typical boy stuff. I love it. He's so, you look at him when he's walking around after he plays in that dirt pile, he looks like Pigpen from the Peanuts series. Right? It's hilarious.
Love it.
Neither here nor there. I mean, he's having fun. And all of a sudden, my buddy Mikey whispers to me, and he kind of points across me into the trees. He goes, I have a feeling we're being watched over there. Something's over there. Right? No word, Tim. No word to lie. 3 seconds later, my boy, who's flat on the ground playing in the dirt, gets up in push-up position and points in the same direction and says, they're here. And I went, who's here? He goes, the ones we're looking for. But there's only one. It was freaking amazing, dude.
Whoa. How do you feel knowing that your kids are out there with you and sensitive to that stuff and learning from old pups?
Love it. I
Love
do.
it.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's cool. And it's an adventure for you guys. That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was one of the coolest things, man.
Dude, we have the beautiful, stellar, and amazing Gentry Anderson in our chat. What's up?
I saw that. You go, girl.
So cool.
You go, girl.
You are loved and missed.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even hanging out with us late tonight is the Cryptid Huntress.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, she messaged me, said, I have great hair tonight.
Stellar.
Not
Stellar.
great, or not gray, but great.
Love that.
Yeah.
The hairy man is interesting. I've never, been exposed. So that's really cool that you're involving your family in your, what do you call it? A gifting site? Am I using the right terminology?
I just call it our area.
Your area. Cool. Yeah. That's really cool.
It's really cool. I mean, the fact that my son saw one last year with us,
that's amazing.
That's kind of what meant the world to me, was last year having that happen.
Brave guy. Brave little guy. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he's very protected too. Like my boy doesn't go wandering around or anything like that. Like he stays in our area. Like if we go wandering around, he stays, much like a wild animal would keep their young right beside them. Right. It's the same way with us here. So.
Wow. Wow. And we're almost going back, but do you feel like there's an element of predictability with an experience like that? Like, can you kind of tell what's going to happen before it happens? Do you feel ever like
after the show?
Okay.
Here we go. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate you tuning us on in. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire. Also check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let's rock and roll it again with Tim Cedor, the UFO Report. Whistleblowers, are they important to what we are doing? Are they important to doing what we want them to do? Because we want them as a public to come on out and tell us what they know, everything they know. But a lot of the good stuff is being hidden behind the walls of Congress. Tim, this is a debate that's going to continue on. Do you believe that if more whistleblowers come out, that it's going to continue the impact of what we're seeing here regarding, I don't want to say disclosure, but confirmation?
I do to some extent, but when it comes to these clandestine concealed UFO recovery programs, I don't think that they're going to give us too much, because that's kind of their bread and butter, if you will. And I don't think that they're going to give up their ways and means of their bread and butter. So maybe we'll hear more from whistleblowers, but I don't think that they're going to give up the direct line to clandestine black budget programs. I just don't see that happening, because that's above the public's pay grade. We're not allowed to know that stuff. So yes, it may get talked about, but I don't think that's the part of it that we're going to hear. And if they do come out with firsthand witnesses and whistleblowers on that level, then again, I think it's going to be more about people that claim to be part of crash retrieval programs, or maybe alien, programs, people that have worked around aliens, because that's part of what this goes by. Again, those are going to be some pretty big claims, and so it's going to have to be somebody that's going to be able to be vetted. But firsthand witnesses to support what's already been spoken about, yeah, I think that's the only thing that's left in the bucket that we haven't seen.
What would you want to see out of the whistleblowers?
Well, like you're saying, that firsthand witness to something, not necessarily a whistleblower, because I'm not as interested in the programs. So I'm more interested in a witness. If you can come out publicly at a public hearing with a witness to something that happened, or, if they were part of a recovery program, let's get some details. And I don't feel like it should be someone that we've already heard from, because a lot of those people have already been pushed to the wayside by the community or by the government for one reason or another, either through vetting or just the fact that we've already heard the story. We need something new, and we need something that can have a paper trail to, something that we can get some historical data from, that we could, even be able to look up on Wikipedia and be able to confirm. That's the kind of thing I think we need, is a first-hand witness to an event, not necessarily a whistleblower.
All right, what's topic number 2 for tonight?
Number 2 is going to be fun. And so we can ride out this one because honestly, it's a pretty big topic. And you and I have talked about this quite a bit on and offline. And the big question is, if we do have these craft with beings, where are they from and who are they? And are UFO and UAP craft from potentially other dimensions? And I love that concept. And there are people that are deeply considering that are in physics and all kinds of other sciences that are a little bit fringe. And so we can talk about some of those theories, and we've narrowed them down to 4 possibilities within that concept. And so, although there are several theories that propose UFO craft could be vehicles originating from other dimensions, these theories are speculative and lack concrete evidence. Now, often they stem from ideas within the realms of quantum physics and string theory. And so I'm going to list 4 here with brief summaries of these theories, along with a few other little details, such as the physicist that conceives the concept. So, for number 1, we're going to consider the multiverse theory. And this theory suggests that our universe is just one of many parallel universes that exist simultaneously. And according to this perspective, UFOs and UAPs could be spacecraft or entities that have found a way to traverse between dimensions. And the concept of the multiverse is explored in works of physicist Brian Greene. So I like this idea, and obviously Marvel Comics has taken this to another level. But Dave, what is your thoughts when it comes to the multiverse theory? And in fact, we've even seen some great films that have come out. I can't remember the one recently for some reason, but I'll bet our chat can, that consider the multiverse as a possibility and being able to slide in between the two, possibly with technology or a manned craft. And if you're able to do that, then time is no longer really important. Do you think it's possible? Do you like this as one of the 4 concepts of multiple dimension or dimensionality for UFOs?
I think it goes beyond UFOs. I really do. I think this ties the entire phenomena together.
Bigfoot as well.
I never believed in it, okay?
Okay.
Never believed in it until in 2018, there were 9 of us doing a ghost walk on the original Gold Rush Trail. And we ran into a Chinese wife and husband. We got that from communication with them, where they were from, and that they were heading up north to Barkerville. Okay, which is had a in the during the heyday of the gold rush, had a large Chinese community there. And to this day, I don't know, Tim, in that investigation, whether we were the ghost to them or they were the ghost to us, because we weren't leaving the trail. And it wasn't until we moved off the trail that they started moving again. And we had the equipment that showed that. And I don't know who was the ghost. That's the interesting part about it.
And if they're from another time, is that a time slip, or how does that work? If it,
I don't know. What about all these people who claim to have interactions with the Thunderbird? Okay, if the Thunderbird was real, and I laugh about this, but I think it's a great example. The size of a Thunderbird is 40 feet, around there. Number 1, that would be caught on radar. Number 2, if that thing ever dropped a deuce, it's painting a house, it's painting a road, it's painting a car, it's painting the forest. There is going to be marks of that, all over the place, yet we never find them. So when people have those sightings outside of the F-16s of the U.S. Air Force, their demonstration team, are they really seeing it in this timeline or a different timeline?
That's really interesting. And that would be evidence of the multiverse theory for people that are coming across reptile like dinosaurs and pterodactyls and the Thunderbird that you're talking about, and things that just don't seem to fit for the time or the location. And sometimes it seems like in this, there's also portals involved where you can almost.
Timmy, you froze up. You froze up on us. There you go. You're almost back. You're almost back.
Okay.
There you are. We got you now.
All right.
What were you saying there?
I was saying, isn't there also a concept where there's a portal and you're able to see into another time or place?
Could be.
That's interesting. Number 2 on this list is string theory. And you'll have to let me know if my signal goes blank, and you'll have to thank Starlink for that. Number 2 being string theory, this theoretical framework attempts to reconcile quantum mechanics and general relativity. And this proposes that all fundamental particles are made up of tiny vibrating strings. And in some interpretations of string theory, additional dimensions beyond the familiar 4, being 3 spatial and 1 temporal, are postulated. And so it's conceivable that UFOs could originate from these higher dimensional spaces. And so string theory is pretty deep. It's a little bit hard to wrap your head around without having a chalkboard in front of you. But I believe that this is the concept that not only do we exist, but something can exist on another level, just maybe 3 feet above us or below us, but very close to us, but we just can't perceive it, but it's that close. And that's also very interesting because that would be something where it wouldn't seem so hard to conceive stepping between one dimension and another because it's literally right next to us. What do you feel about that as a concept?
Could be. Could be. I mean, this is all the stuff that we just don't know, dude. It's all the stuff that we just don't know. And this is what kind of trips me out a little bit about it.
If a door opened up in front of you, Dave, and it was a world to another universe, and there were beings in there beckoning to you, and they're waving a book at you, would you walk through that door?
Only if the cryptid huntress and Tim Cedor and Marquise Williams were holding a rope that could tug me back just in case.
Just in case that book they're waving is a cookbook.
Oh, yeah. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I think it's a really cool concept. It definitely gets me juicy just thinking about it. Number 3 here is just straight up interdimensional travel. And this theory suggests that UFOs could be spacecraft or beings capable of navigating between dimensions by manipulating gravitational forces or exploiting wormholes. And it speculates that these entities may possess advanced technology or understanding of physics that allows them to access different dimensions. This theory often draws inspiration from concepts explored in science fiction literature and movies. While there isn't specific scholarly source for this theory, exploring works of fiction like Interstellar or Contact can provide imaginative perspectives for interdimensional travel. Do you think it's happening, Dave?
I hope so. I want interdimensional travel. I want time travel. I want all sorts of travel.
What do you think of the wormhole concept?
I think it's the only way to get here. I think it's the only way that they are getting here from wherever they're coming from.
Do you think they can fabricate them mechanically with their technology?
Dude, if they have the ability to create 3 to 5 mile long craft that people have seen, they have that technology.
Right.
In order to do whatever the hell they want. Bend space and time, use wormholes, use portals, use whatever they want. I will believe that. Right? Other people may not. Old Davy is in the thumbs up for that category.
I love it. The hardest one for me to perceive as a human is this fourth one, which is quantum entanglement. And I can explain it in the Tim version, but I'll give you this version first. This theory explores the idea of UFOs that could employ principles of quantum entanglement to traverse between dimensions. So quantum entanglement is a phenomenon where particles become linked together regardless of the distance between them. And so theorists speculate that this phenomenon could be harnessed to instantaneously transport objects across space and time, potentially facilitating interdimensional travel. And of all of them, I feel like this is the most potential, because you could send a particle on a laser beam that can travel faster than time. So theoretically, faster than light speed. So theoretically, you could travel ahead, or I think ahead. I don't think behind is, or actually, yeah. So, well, either way, this is where it gets a little weedy. But theoretically, you could do things like time travel with this concept, but it's basically shaking hands with anywhere you want in the universe by sending a particle there first, seeing if it's possible, and then sending a bunch of particles. Now, you'd have to break yourself down into particles first, which doesn't sound comfortable. And hopefully you're reconstituted properly on the other end. And that gets a little weedy. But I love the idea of sending information on laser beams into space. And this gets interesting. What do you think, D?
Well, before we go any further, thanks to Dog, we should probably at this time of the night say hello to all the agents and agencies that are tuning us in tonight. Give us a call sometime. You already got the phone numbers. We don't need to supply them for you. But remember, some of us can be bought. Some of us.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, that's interesting to me because I am really hip to that. It sounds like there could even be working on this kind of technology, sending particles on laser beams faster than the speed of light. Dave, what do you think about that? Possible?
I don't know yet. I do not know yet. Why I don't know, you can blame me. I would like to think that we know how to get to that point of technology. I don't think we're there yet as humans. I really don't. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I just don't see it. I just don't see us being there yet. I'm not saying out at Area 51 or someplace like that, they haven't got it for us yet. Okay, but when I see airliners still traveling after 60 years at 500, knots going from Seattle to New York, that just seems a little outdated for me.
Yeah. We're deeply invested in outdated technology, Dave. I hear you saying that.
So whether or not we could actually get to the area where we want to go, I'm not sure we're there yet.
That's fair. That's fair.
Number 5.
No, that was it. That was it. Yeah, just 4 tonight. We had 4 different kinds of dimensionality possibilities that we're looking into. And I love all of them. I consider dimensionality very much a possibility when it comes to UFOs, to wrap things up in my philosophy. I think that's more likely than them literally taking the time to get from here to there, because that's a huge amount of time. So them cheating and using some of these concepts seems totally viable to me, especially when it works theoretically on paper.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see where it works. I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime, Tim. I think, I think we have to figure out hypersonic, and when I say hypersonic, in that above 7,000 miles an hour type of speed. We have to get comfortable with that first before we start playing with the big aliens and trying to figure out how we're going to move something at light speed.
Well, I'll just throw this last grenade in before I let you go. In my family's sighting, when I saw that craft moving, it appeared like it was almost in two. There was almost two of them. It was moving so quickly, except it wasn't literally in two places at once. It would be there, and then it would be at the other end of the sky. And I'd look back, and it was not there anymore. It had moved. And so I have seen things that defy space and time. And so when I hear things or see things like this, conceptually, it works for me.
And that's what we're doing to try and manifest Sasquatch and aliens in 10 days' time when you're here, Tim.
I am with you.
Good old Timmy Cedor. It's always a good time when you are on here with us, and I'm so excited that every day we're a day closer to sharing that ice cap, my friend.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Cheers, my brother. Cheers, and cheers to our audience too. Thank you so much tonight.
Yeah, they're kind of good people. Even that Gentry Anderson who's in the chat room, she's a good solid 4 out of 4. That's true right there. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. Scare you a little bit, Timmy?
A little bit. But I'm
scared.
ready.
A little bit scared.
I mean, I'm ready. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if your kid can do it, I feel solid. I can probably not run away. But I am curious if you, in your sensitivities out there, ever sense danger.
Oh, yeah, we get the hell out. I've sensed danger twice in the forest and got the hell out of there.
What does that feel like? A wave of panic? Is it something that doesn't feel like it's coming from you? What does that feel like?
Feels very unsafe. Feels very like you're not supposed to be there, and you being there is not being very, very smart.
Right. And obviously I tell everyone I'm going to run for the hills, but I'm obviously not going to panic and run. But quite literally, if you get a reaction that is kind of panicky, do you think it senses that because it's out because you're, like game to them, right? And so it's sensing you. So is it, do you
This
have
way,
to like have mind over matter while you're out there? Like what?
you're lucky that you have Samantha and I there.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't need to worry about a thing.
So it feels like kind of like a wave of panic, you're saying? Where you feel like you shouldn't be there and you feel exposed, sort of like, okay. And usually does it hit the group all at the same time, like instinctually?
The last time it happened to me, I got hit with alien faces. Like I was seeing pareidolia of alien faces all over the place. Mark. Sorry, Tim.
No, you're fine.
Mark was getting hit with headaches and like feeling very sluggish and very heavy on his shoulders.
Do you think going in heavy with cameras is going to be a detractor and make them less likely to want to hang out? Are they aware of that stuff or?
Knowing Samantha, she's already talking to them about it.
Okay. And what about aromas? Like if I went in there with Axe body spray, I don't wear any cologne, audience, but if I was to go in there, that something to mask my human odor with something artificial.
The female cougars are going to put their stilettos on all four paws and come up to you.
Right.
No, man, I don't care. I'm not trying to.
No, I'm just curious as to like what if you've done this sort of thing. Like, no, like natural human aroma attracts them, and you can, or like, what if you're wearing insect repellent? Does it bother them? I'm just curious.
They smell everything, man.
Right.
You got to realize is their noses, or any wild animal's nose, the minute they smell your Axe body spray, they're going to know that there's humans around and it's a place to stay away from.
Stay away. Okay.
Right.
So you try to go in there as low key as possible.
So what our job to do between Samantha, Merle, and I is to manifest them to say, even though Tim smells like Axe body spray, that we're here for them, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Interesting.
I'm going to be calling them in. Samantha's going to be calling them in. Merle's going to be scared with you, but he'll be calling them in.
Is there anything that they like? Do they like natural?
Man, I'm going to be the guy who gets screwed up over all this.
Right.
When we do the one experiment in the dark, and I'm all alone with just a camera on me
and a jar of honey, can we like bring treats for them? Do you think that lures them in if they can smell honey?
No, we're not bringing any food treats.
No treats. You said that last time too. Is that because of bears?
Yeah. I am not calling in any dumb grizzly bear.
I love the way your brain. See, I couldn't even trick you into doing it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to smother myself in cinnamon and sugar.
No. Okay. I am being very careful.
Good.
About what goes on. And I'm not putting us in any predicament that could get us in trouble.
We still all want to roll you in cinnamon and sugar, though, Dave. Just.
Oh, I know you dirty pricks do, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is exciting. It's really cool to do something like this and to be able to film an investigation like that. I've never done that, so it's pretty cool.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Because, like I said, we're going into an area that is very, very active. Actually, both areas that weekend we're going in are quite active.
That's exciting. Did I tell you that we added a second camera and cameraman?
Oh, no, you did not tell me this.
Rich's partner, yeah. Well, not partner, but another guy kind of equal to Rich. So 2 cameras is going to be much simpler. Going to take a lot of pressure off you guys too, and me. So I don't actually have to hold camera. I can just authentically poo my pants on camera for you. I'm just kidding.
No, Gentry, we're not doing a CE5. We are going to try what they call the Estes method in the middle of the forest, where I'm going to be sitting alone in a cul-de-sac of dirt surrounded by trees. With, I don't know if we're putting candles up or glow sticks up, probably for safety, glow sticks. And Merle and Samantha are going to walk away. And it's just going to be me. And I'm scared as hell over it, to be blunt. But I'm going to do it.
Dave Bate.
Because I know they're going to be there.
Yeah.
I still think we're going to get a light show above us. And that's my prediction, is that we're going to get a light show above us.
I really have mixed feelings about this. No, it's cool, man. Middle of nowhere, Canada? Yeah, forget about it. Sign me up. Wolves, bear, Bigfoot, walking tarantula, fish? Sure.
What tarantula fish?
I don't know. Whatever you have up there in BC County.
BC County now.
I'm just, riffing. This is TJ riffing. It's going to be nuts. I'm looking forward to it. You have ghosts. Yeah. You have Bigfoot.
We'll have to try. I'll tell you right now, we will have the trifecta there.
Bigfoot, ghost, ET.
And
yeah.
And when shit starts running in the forest, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to freeze up like a pipe.
Great. I'm going to be like, Dave, what do we do? Dave, what do we do? Statue. I was like, do I do that too, Dave? Should I be statuing like you? Should I just be shitting like I am? You'll be like, no, just keep shitting. Just don't move.
Hey, it's Penny Van's birthday.
Oh,
you know this
no.
means? We get to sing happy birthday to Penny.
Oh, dude,
Van.
This is all you. Please. This is a solo. Right. Trust me.
Here we go. Ready? And a 1, 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 and a 1. Happy birthday to you. No, wrong tune. Let's see here. All right, Penny Van. This is for you, my beautiful friend. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, little Penny Van. Happy birthday, as my voice is cracking tonight. Happy birthday, Penny Van, to you. I apologize, Penny Van. My voice isn't 100% tonight.
That was fantastic. Personalized. It was beautiful. Her new ringtone.
I'll be honest with you. I love singing happy birthday to our audience.
So special.
I do. Who else does that? Honestly, who else does that? Nobody. James Weston, it's happening.
Forget about it.
It's because I'm tired. That's why I suck at it tonight. I am sorry.
So much
Penny
better
Man.
than the card. No way. That was stellar. So much better than a card.
Yeah, it was better than a card, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And on that note,
You out of here?
I think I might.
You should.
Let me see what I got here. I got nothing, is what I've got. I'm all done.
All right, dude.
It's been
I'll
fun
talk-
staying up a little later, though. And I definitely appreciate you and your audience listening to me ramble and ask Dave questions.
Next week, just so you know when you're here, bring really light clothes. Like bring light pants and a light jacket. Don't wear anything warm because it's going to be like really hot next week, like in the 90s here.
Sounds perfect. I can't wait. It's going to be
Yeah.
great. You just keep telling that hairy man to get ready and to
He's
eat well so he's not hungry when he's ready to meet me. You know,
He's
or
coming.
your team. Just remember, Dave, I'm pushing you towards him and
Oh, yeah,
running the other way. That's our
That's
deal. I have that in writing. It's part of our contract that I get to feed you to Bigfoot to keep him busy to save my own skin.
Oh, yeah. I'm game with that.
Part of the contract. All right, buddy. Thank you, audience, and thank you, D.
care.
Y'all have fun. You here? See you later.
Everybody. Much love. All right. Now that we got rid of Timbits, I'm going to disappear for a minute. We don't have any mugginess here. So, and even the nights are going to be warm here next week. So it'll be good. I'll be right back. How we doing? How we doing? Put that there. Reflection. I don't know. Was their eyeballs looking in there again? Maybe it's my gnomes. Maybe it's my gnomes. I don't know. You got that right, Mystery, on Voice of the Gods. Dave is feeling really tired because I had way too long of a nap after work. And my back is starting to feel much better. So, but the good part about it is I got this nice red on. I don't wear a lot of red, but I really like this red shirt. So that's pretty much the situation. I slept way too long. I'm sorry about that. That is my fault. Completely my fault. Almost done. Victor Vigiani is our guest tomorrow night on the show. We're going to talk about more UFOs. We'll hopefully learn a little bit more about these potential new hearings, kind of get into all of that kind of stuff tomorrow night, which will be a lot of fun. Davey Crotch Kick, how you doing, buddy? All right, everybody, we're going to wrap things up here. And I'm going to say big thank you once again, Victor Vigiani, tomorrow night on the show. And big thank you tonight to Deb, Phil W. Decker, Twig, Kira, Dog times 4, Izzy, Deb again, CS, Lee, Lala, Free Your Mind, actually Dog times 5, and Deb times 2. Yeah. Thank you for the love, everybody. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow night. I promise I'll be a lot more awake tomorrow. Take care.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.